This is Kang Yihwan, who wakes up in a dark and destroyed laboratory with a blood-covered girl slamming her head against the door. Looking to the side, he finds a dead man with his body completely mutilated. He lets out a scream. Taking in the situation, Kang has blood on his hands and wonders if he did this. The bloody girl stares at Kang but turns away and goes back to bashing her head against the door. A few minutes later, one of her eyes turns red and Kang makes that face like, "Can someone please explain what the hell happened here?" The man next to him is still alive and starts moving. Kang tries to help, but the man doesn't have much time. Meanwhile, on the other side of the lab, a doctor was hiding, scared out of his mind like someone who just spotted an ICE agent. When he looks to the side and realizes the girl moved, he decides to get out of there. He grabs a golf club and heads to the hallway. At that same moment, Kang lifts the guy onto a gurney and he starts screaming, completely lost. In the middle of all this chaos, he decides to push the gurney with the body toward the hallway. When the protagonist opens the door, he finds the doctor wandering in the hallway. He screams, asking the doctor for help. But what he didn't expect was the girl to come sprinting straight toward the doctor. When the doctor screams in terror, a bunch of zombies show up behind him and they all start tearing him apart. The protagonist is horrified, with no idea what's going on. A noise comes from behind him. The gurney man rises up. Kang panics, thinking he's about to die. The guy comes straight at him, but walks right past him and goes to devour the old man instead. Kang feels an enormous wave of relief and a little guilty that the old man took his place. Right then, some flashes hit his mind and he starts remembering how he ended up there. He was having lunch with his friend when it came up on TV that there was a zombie attack in the city. He finishes lunch quick and they head straight to the agency. He shows his corpse investigator badge and the woman takes them to the operating room. Inside the operating room, there are two bodies attacked by zombies. They put on protective gloves and examine the bodies to figure out what happened. While checking the woman's teeth, he feels a prick on his finger and realizes his glove was torn. Thank goodness he had his protective gear on. Imagine if he didn't. A few minutes later, he looks at the woman in shock and notices that the marks on her are gone. Shortly after, his body starts to change and he begins hallucinating like he just took LSD. The pain hits so hard that he drops to the floor and passes out right there. Back to the present, he realizes he's not being attacked because he was bitten by a zombie, and since the transformation wasn't complete, he became the only half-zombie with just one red eye. A few hours pass. When he finally checks his phone, he has 300 missed calls from his sister. When he goes to read the messages, the battery dies right at that moment. Kang realizes he needs to get out of there if he wants to save his sister. He walks straight through the zombies and not one of them touches him. When he gets to the street, the city is completely empty, full apocalypse vibes. His stomach growls from hunger, but he spots a convenience store across the street. When he walks in, he grabs a burger and starts eating like crazy. After filling up, he hears a noise in the back of the store. He walks to the room, opens the door and finds a girl crouched down shaking from hunger. Kang grabs food and water for her and she tears through a sandwich and drinks like it's her last meal. She thanks him for helping and asks how he made it there alive. He casually replies that he just walked over. Shocked, she asks about the zombies. He shrugs and says he didn't really see any. Kang wants to charge his phone to call his sister and goes to look for a charger in the store. The girl warns him, "Don't open that door, they'll get in." Kang replies, "Relax, there's nobody out there." Guess what? There was somebody. A giant zombie standing right in the hallway. The thing looks past Kang straight at the girl in the back and goes after only her. Kang closes his eyes and shoves the zombie away with insane strength. When he opens his eyes, the store wall is completely destroyed and his arm is glowing. The girl asks how he did that. So now he can walk among zombies and has superhuman strength. He thinks, okay, this is getting interesting. They find the charger. Kang tries to call his sister, but it goes straight to voicemail. Meanwhile, the girl talks to her mom. The mom says, "Don't come home, just survive." Kang looks at her and changes the plan. First, he takes the girl home. Then he goes to find his sister. They hear a noise from the other side, near the store entrance. The boy slowly opens the door to peek. A few zombies are wandering around the store randomly. The girl asks if there are zombies outside, and how he plans to get out of there. The boy looks at the zombies and starts thinking up a plan. He starts messing with the trays. Picking up a piece of equipment, he tells the girl that from now on she's not to leave that room. While he keeps working on it, turning it into a weapon, he says it doesn't matter what she hears and she shouldn't even try to open the door. With the stick strapped to his hand, he tells the girl to wait there. With tears in her eyes, she wonders what he's planning to do. As he's about to leave, she yells and asks him to wait a minute. He knocks on the door and locks her in there. She starts hearing the sound of him hitting the zombies, and she freaks out. The girl curls up and covers her ears while the noises keep going thuds and groans. Crying, she starts to notice the fighting sounds are dying down. Suddenly, the door opens. The boy shows up and says everything's okay now and that she can come out, his shirt covered in blood. The girl can barely believe he's standing right there in front of her without a single scratch. So she asks him if he's okay. Kang says yes, and that, honestly, he wasn't totally sure what he was doing. As we see the store completely cleared of zombies, he says it looks like now he actually knows what he's doing. Then we see the bodies of the zombies that had gotten into the store, all piled up outside, while he says he doesn't know why. But it seems like the zombies don't bite him. We see a clothing store with lots of clothes still inside, and some scattered on the floor. Kang is in there picking a few things out. He grabs a new pair of pants, wondering if that's enough. He remembers what the girl said, that she'd only go if she had pants to wear, and thinks it's not even cold enough to need pants. Then he notices something behind him. When he turns around, he sees his reflection in a big mirror. Since he's already there, he figures he might as well change his own clothes too. After picking out some clothes for himself, he's finally ready to leave. He walks out of the clothing store and notices something across the street. A white motorcycle is parked there. Looking closer, it seems to be in great condition. Clearly in love with the bike, he decides to take it, telling himself it's an emergency situation anyway. Back at the convenience store, he asks the girl to open the door and lets her know it's him. He asks if she's dressed, and she says yes, he can come in now. She really is dressed this time, wearing the pants he brought. Kang apologizes for grabbing the first thing he saw that looked good and durable, and she says it's fine, and thanks him for doing that for her. He says he didn't see any zombies nearby, and that they need to grab as much food and other stuff as they can and get out of there. He finds a baseball bat and says he's taking it for safety. Then the girl asks if he's really going to be okay. She says she's worried he's taking unnecessary risks because of her, and that he really doesn't have any reason to be helping her like this. She goes on, saying he probably has family to look for too, like he's someone's dad or something. Kang says she might be right, but she doesn't need to feel guilty about anything. He says he's sure a day will come when he'll need help just as much as she needs it right now. And he finishes by saying that, on top of everything, the zombies don't bite him. It's the middle of the night in the city, and zombies are everywhere, wandering the streets aimlessly. A noise catches one zombie's attention. The noise is Kang riding the motorcycle, speeding past them. He wonders why the zombies' reaction to him is so indifferent. Looking in the rearview mirror, he thinks that at this pace, they can easily outrun them. He keeps going with stubborn determination, silently begging for his sister to be safe because he's going to rescue her. At a nearby gas station, a bunch of zombies are gathered around the pumps. A man is sitting by the barricaded convenience store door with a bottle of water in his hand. Looking at the bottle, he realizes it's completely empty. He thinks that now that the water's gone, he's definitely going to die. He thinks that out of all the places he could have hidden, he ended up in the emptiest convenience store of them all. His bad luck really is going to follow him to the end. In a notebook, we see the name exclusive reporter Kim Ki-doo written down, as he says his life really is one big exclusive. Then he hears the sound of a motorcycle outside. Kim starts to get up to try to see what's going on out there, thinking there are still survivors out there and that he definitely heard a motorcycle. Listening more closely, he realizes the sound is getting nearer. Then he spots someone outside with a motorcycle, and he's totally shocked when he sees not just one, but two people on the bike. Kim thinks they're idiots that they got off the motorcycle even after seeing the state of the place, packed with zombies. He thinks it's dangerous to open the barricade, but he needs to try to call out to them. That's when he hears a noise. He looks back, trying to figure out what happened, and that's when he sees one of the zombies collapsed, sitting on the ground next to the entrance door. He kept staring at that zombie, stunned that it wasn't moving anymore. Outside, Kang smashes another zombie in the head with his baseball bat. It goes flying and slams into the pillar between two gas pumps. Our guy brings the bat down on another one nearby. We see the zombie crushed at his feet, and the ground cracked from the impact. Watching that, Kim wonders what kind of superhuman strength this guy has. A zombie comes up behind him, screaming and growling. The reporter inside tries to yell a warning. Our guy turns around and notices the zombie, and the zombie just runs right past him, straight ahead. Kim has no idea what to think, and can't even process what he just saw. That zombie was going after the girl, who's hiding behind the motorcycle. But obviously our guy isn't about to let her get attacked, so he uses his bat to launch the zombie up into the air. He tells the girl it's okay now, and that he doesn't think there are any more zombies nearby. The reporter thinks that, unless he's seeing things, that guy just cleared the whole gas station of zombies, and he also noticed the zombies just don't bite him. Kang says he didn't realize the bike was out of gas, and it's a good thing they found a station close by. Suddenly, Kim yells at the guy to get his attention and the girls too. He says he found the exclusive story he'd been looking for. The two of them are obviously like, "What are you even talking about?" Inside the station's convenience store, the reporter is chugging a bottle of water like his life depends on it. When he finishes, he's super relieved and says he thought he was going to die of thirst. Kang asks how many days he was stuck in there, and the reporter says 3. He didn't even know the store had been cleared out, except for that one bottle of water. He says he thought heaven had abandoned him, but apparently not, since it sent rescuers to save him. Then he says that since fate connected them now, they might as well get to know each other and properly introduce themselves. He says his name is Kim Ki-doo, he's 32, he's a reporter, and these days that doesn't really mean anything. The girl introduces herself as Park Jin-ae. She's 20, and says she's a freshman at Korea University. Our guy introduces himself as Kang Yi-won. He says he's 28 and works as a funeral director. The reporter says he doesn't look like someone who'd do that job, and our guy asks if that's supposed to be a compliment or not. Kang notices the girl suddenly stop to look at him, so he asks why she's staring at him like that. She says he's 28, so he's really not an old man after all. The reporter says it looks like the two of them met after everything happened to the world. She says yeah, she was trapped in the convenience store when he came in and saved her. The two of them realize they didn't even have time to ask each other's names, they were so focused on making it there alive. Kim says they've been through a lot too, and he wants to hear everything later. But there's something he really wants to ask first. He looks at the guy and asks if the zombies really don't bite him. A bunch of zombies start heading toward the gas station after hearing all the fighting. Inside the convenience store, after Kang tells the reporter his story, the reporter asks if he really only woke up 5 days later. Kang says he doesn't know exactly what happened, he got sick and passed out, and then woke up 5 days later. The reporter says nothing surprises him anymore. Then the reporter keeps talking, saying Kang left the hospital and found Jin A in the convenience store across the street, and Kang confirms it. She'd been hiding there for the last 5 days until he saved her, and now they're looking for family members they managed to contact. Kim concludes that neither of them really knows what happened over the last 5 days, and says maybe that's for the best. Jin A says she wants to know exactly what happened during those 5 days. Kim says that in just 5 days, the whole planet got taken over by zombies, and asks her how she thinks that happened. He starts by saying the first 2 days were absolute hell, people would be fine 1 second, and the next they'd turn into zombies and attack. A lot of people ended up dying without even knowing what was going on, until everyone finally started to figure it out. And what's even scarier is that most people were attacked by close friends or family who got attacked first and then turned into zombies. Seeing the look on the girl's face, the reporter apologizes for telling it in such a scary way and says he shouldn't have brought up families. The reporter says he really does know her family is okay, that if she managed to talk to them on the phone, it means they're actually safe. The girl lets out a relieved breath and says yeah, she needs to find her parents. Our guy looks at her and feels happy about how optimistic she is. Then Kang asks how the reporter ended up there, and Kim says that in a situation like this, they can call him Hyung, not Sir. He says he was busy trying to find the cause of all this and ended up missing his chance to find a good shelter, and as a reporter, he just couldn't let the story go. His car was running out of gas and, as you can imagine, he ended up stuck there at that gas station. Kang asks if he knows what caused it, and the reporter says that thinking about it, that isn't the most important thing right now, and that's why he wants to ask something. Then he asks how the hell the kid is that strong. Right after that, they're shocked by a bunch of zombies slamming against the convenience store windows. They freak out at the sight and start backing away. The reporter asks how they gathered so fast, and how there are still this many dead people showing up. Kang thinks they definitely have to get out of there, but the motorcycle can't carry one more person. The kid asks the reporter if the car he mentioned is parked nearby, and he says yeah. He adds that he left it a little off the road nearby, because it was before everything spread and he couldn't drive it all the way up there. Kang runs to grab his baseball bat. He grips it and tests his hold. Then he tells the other two to hide and lock the door tight. He'll try to hold them off there. Our protagonist tells them not to worry, while the reporter starts asking how he's supposed to handle all that by himself. Then he says they both know the zombies don't bite him. Turning around and looking at the girl, he tells her not to worry, he'll definitely get her home. After all, he promised. He takes a deep breath and wonders if he can start having some fun. The girl tells him not to call her so formally because she's not that old, and that she'll stop calling him Sir. He looks at her with a slight smile, and finally he says, okay, smiling at her, and says he'll be right back. Meanwhile, the reporter thinks it's kind of funny that he got caught up with such a bizarre couple. Then we see a ton of zombies starting to gather in front of the gas station convenience store. Suddenly, one of the zombies goes flying clearly after taking a hit from Kang. Then we see our guy standing there like he just threw a solid punch. He apologizes and says nobody's allowed to come in there. Night goes on in the city, with empty streets. We see a group of zombies trying to get through a door, pounding and making noise. One of them is pressed up against the glass, screaming and banging. Then something yanks it up by the back of its collar. Kang throws it backward, right on top of a bunch of other zombies. He puts his hand on one of the zombies' faces. Then he slams the zombie's head into the wall. Our guy says that not only do they not bite him, they don't even seem to notice he's there. Looking at the horde in front of him, he says he doesn't know how it works, but it doesn't matter right now. He rests the baseball bat on the ground and says that, like he said before, nobody's getting past that point. The reporter and the girl watch from inside the convenience store. He thinks it's true the zombies don't attack him, like they don't even recognize him. Kim wonders about that superhuman strength he has, and whether it's connected to the fact the zombies won't bite him. The girl keeps watching, terrified by how many zombies there are, worried about our guy. Kang keeps wrecking the zombies with baseball bat swings, kicks, and punches. In the middle of the fight, he realizes he's hungry. Then he thinks it hasn't even been that long since the last time he ate, but he's starving like he hasn't had food in days, just like last time, when he woke up. He thinks, at least I brought plenty of food. Kang will definitely feel better once he finishes wiping out that small horde and sits down to eat. Then something happens inside his body. The boy drops to his knees right there among the zombies. Both the reporter and the girl are shocked and yell for him. Kang puts his hands on the ground so he doesn't completely collapse. Then he stops and realizes he suddenly thought about Jin A, and what the hell was that? He's horrified at the thought that he was actually considering eating a person, like the zombies do. The reporter crouches down and asks the girl if it's dangerous out there, while she keeps shouting for Kang. She says she has to go help him, but Kim tells her that if she goes outside right now, they'll all swarm her. Then they hear a scream outside and freeze. The boy gets up and punches a zombie in the face. He turns and kicks another one right in the head. Then he smashes a third one beside him with the baseball bat. Zombies start flying as he attacks. He grabs one by the neck and slams it into the ground. Then he looks around and sees the zombies on the floor, beaten. Kang is breathing hard, his face desperate. Both the girl and the reporter stare in awe, amazed at what he just did. The boy thinks, no, he's definitely not like those monsters. Gripping the handle of his baseball bat, he tells himself he's human. Angry, with one eye the same color as the zombies, he says he's definitely not going to become like them. He comes inside and we see him chugging water, thirsty. Then Kang apologizes to the reporter for drinking all his precious water, and the man says he doesn't care. Kang has saved them both multiple times. The girl, worried, asks if he's really okay, and he says yeah, he just felt a little weak for a moment. Kim says it's easy to understand. Even if the zombies don't attack him, dealing with that many zombies alone is still rough. Then the boy puts a hand on his stomach and notices something. The hunger he had while fighting is completely gone. He felt like his stomach was twisting, and he wonders why. Then he says he thinks it'll be safer if they move using Kim's car, and asks if that's okay. The reporter says it's fine. The reporter adds that, just to be safe, they should take a few gas containers, since he parked before all of this happened. While Kang is telling them they should stick together, and that splitting up is more dangerous, someone comes running toward them from outside. The person bangs on the glass and screams for help, begging them to let them in. They jump, and the reporter yells, "What the hell is happening now?" He keeps saying that every time things seem to calm down in that place, something new happens to mess with them. Kang sees that the person out front asking for help doesn't look like a zombie. The man begs for help and says something about his friend. He says his friend is dying and pleads with them, while we see two people behind him, one carrying the other over his shoulders. The girl asks what they should do, should they help them or not? The reporter says they should be careful. He says just because they're not zombies doesn't mean they're not dangerous, and tells them to remember what he said about the world over the last 5 days. The girl says they can't just turn their backs on people who need help, that she's only alive because Kang didn't turn his back on her and helped her. Kang says he agrees with her, and that now is the time to save as many people as possible and work together, while the reporter stays quiet. Kim sighs and says if that's what the two of them think, then he doesn't really have a choice. The girl runs to the door lock and opens it. Smiling, she tells them to come in. The men thank her as they enter the store. The man who had his head down, injured, suddenly looks up with a nasty, malicious look. The girl hands one of the men a bottle of water, and he thanks her. Then she asks what happened, and the guy says he doesn't know either, he just suddenly blacked out and hasn't really come to since. The reporter asks if he got bitten by a zombie, and his friend quickly says no, he doesn't look like he has any wounds or bleeding. The other guy says their friend's been like that since that morning, and if he'd been bitten, he definitely would have turned into a zombie by now. The reporter is still suspicious, and Kang notices the guy is watching them really closely. Kim asks if the guys have any kind of plan, and they say no, they just wanted to find somewhere safe and people who could help them. Then he says it's pretty naive of them to be looking for help with the world the way it is right now. The girl turns to him and tells him to stop it. She says again that in times like that, people need to help each other even more, that she's only alive because of Kang, while she holds a towel to the injured guy's head. The guy lying on the floor thanks her for caring. The reporter sighs and says fine, he's the only one there without a heart. Kang asks the reporter if he said his car was an SUV, and if so, whether it would fit 5 people. The guy says yeah, he thinks so. Then the reporter asks why 5 people if there are 6 of them, and Kang says he's planning to go separately on his motorcycle. He says he can ride ahead as an escort and check the route, since there might be blocked areas or places packed with zombies. Kang keeps going, saying they were planning to leave anyway, and asks if it wouldn't be better to go grab the car quickly. The reporter says yes, but hesitates and looks at the girl. She tells them to go ahead, she'll take care of the sick guy. Kim says okay, they'll be back soon, and asks them to wait there. Then he and Kang head out through the convenience store door. The girl watches them leave and starts thinking. The man lying on the floor suddenly gives this sly, nasty little smile. The reporter and Kang find the car. While he's filling it up, the kid asks why the reporter was so wary of those guys, adding that they didn't seem like bad people. Kim asks if he's ever seen a bad person with villain written on their forehead. He says the kid's only calm because he didn't see what happened in the world over the last 5 days. He goes on, in a situation like that, there's nobody you can trust. Kang asks why he even approached them in the first place. The guy says he lost his head thinking about getting a good story, and besides, he was about to die of dehydration. The kid asks why the reporter called them an exclusive scoop back there. The reporter asks if he's seriously asking that, because apparently he doesn't get it. And he says if not getting bitten by zombies isn't an exclusive scoop, then he doesn't know what is anymore. Suddenly Kang's stomach growls loudly like he's seriously starving. Kim hears it and asks if he's hungry, and Kang gives an awkward smile and says yeah. The guy says that makes sense, especially after he took down all those zombies, and says once they get out of there, they should look for food first. The kid, holding his stomach, thinks about what the guy said. Something happens that makes Kang go on alert. He starts walking down the street, and Kim notices he's drifting farther away. So the reporter asks what's going on if something's wrong. Kang asks if he heard something just now. The other guy says no, he didn't hear anything, and asks if it could be zombies coming closer, but Kang says it didn't sound like that. He's sure it was Jinae's voice. Back at the store, we see the girl screaming. The men are holding her while she asks what they're doing and tells them to let her go. One of them says she's way too loud, and if she keeps screaming like that, she's going to attract zombies over there. Then one of the men pulls out a gun and presses it to the girl's head. He says after she gets torn to pieces by zombies, she'll be begging him to shoot her and put her out of her misery. Then he says he can't believe the other two fell for that story so easily, that it wasn't even innocence, it was just stupidity. The other guy says they'll be back soon, and asks if they can do that, and the other one's like, yeah. Then sarcastically goes, what? Were they wearing bulletproof vests or something? The sick-looking guy walks up to the girl and squeezes her cheeks, saying that if anything happens, they'll just take her hostage. The girl takes the chance since his hand is right by her mouth and bites his finger. He lets out this insanely loud scream, then he punches her in the face, cussing her out. He keeps going, hitting her 3 more times, and then he cocks his gun. One of his buddies jokes that it's hilarious he got bitten by a woman instead of a zombie. The guy who got bitten says he was gonna wait until they dealt with the other guys, but he can't wait anymore, and tells them to stand guard. His friend messes with him, saying he's a perv, and that getting bitten by her turned him on early. The guy tells him to shut up, and says he knows he wants to do it to her too. He says she's way too pretty to use once, and toss aside after they deal with her friends, they can keep her with them. As he says that, he starts pulling down the girl's pants. While unzipping his own pants, he says maybe the other two, when they get back, will want to join in too. But Kang is behind him, hearing everything. The young guy launches himself at the attacker, and punches him with all his strength. The guy goes flying face first into the shelving wall. The other two ask what he did, and when he even got there. One of Kang's eyes is a bright red while the other looks normal, and he stares at the two left with pure hatred. Kang looks down and sees the girl passed out, her face bloody and bruised. A car slams on the brakes right in front of the gas station. The reporter jumps out, running and calling Jinae's name. He runs over and drops to his knees next to her, asking if she's okay and telling her to open her eyes. He looks at the two guys left and yells angrily, saying he knew he had a bad feeling about those guys. The boy tells the reporter to take the girl to the car. He says he'll catch up soon, but he has to take care of something first. Kim is filling up the car, using the gas pump. He puts the nozzle back and thinks, finally, the tank's full. He also thinks he got lucky, no zombies showed up while he was pumping gas because you never know when they'll come in a pack. Then he looks off to the side, thinking, the girl is sitting there, all wrapped up, her face messed up. He thinks those men who went into the store got a taste of what the world's become too. He tells the girl not to worry, because at least she'll be safe. Then he thinks of Kang and adds that that kid will protect her from anything. One of the men says he's underestimating them, thinking he's invincible just because he's got a baseball bat. Then one of them pulls a baton from behind his back. The other pulls out a crowbar, and the first one says Kang really thinks he can take both of them alone just because he hid like a coward. Kang just keeps staring at them without saying a word. Suddenly, he drops the baseball bat on the ground, and the two guys look shocked. One of them asks if that means he's giving up if he finally realized he can't take them both by himself. The first guy keeps talking, saying it doesn't matter now even if Kang begs, he's gonna pay with his life for what he did, while the other guy taps his friend on the shoulder to get his attention. He asks if Kang doesn't look kind of weird. Kang stands there, trying to figure out what's happening, because a second ago he was absolutely furious, but now his mind is weirdly calm, like it's totally empty. Actually, emptier than ever. Then he realizes he's insanely hungry, like he might lose it, and he gives them this crazy smile. Then we see a pool of blood, then an arm, and the baton one of the guys had pulled out. The first man, the one who got thrown into the shelving wall, watches as Kang eats pieces of his friend. Then Kang looks at him. Finally, Kang drops the guy he was chewing onto the floor and stands up. Then he starts walking slowly toward what's left of him, while the fear inside him keeps growing. Pulling the gun toward himself and shaking, the man says he wasn't a zombie before, and wonders why he's doing that. Scared, he looks at Kang's face. Kang's mouth is covered in blood, staring right at him. He's overwhelmed with panic and points his gun at the boy while yelling. Then we hear gunshots. We see the guy's hand holding the gun drop to the floor, and Kang, teeth clenched, his mouth smeared with blood. He grabs the backpack and starts picking something up from on top of a chair. Kim stops the car, shouting, asking what that was if what he heard was a gunshot. Then he notices something coming out of the store. Looking closer, he sees it's Kang, adjusting the backpack on his shoulders. He asks the boy if he's okay. The boy says yes and asks how Jinae is. The reporter says the girl looks like she's sleeping now, and that she'll be fine. Kang looks relieved, while Kim wonders where he got those clothes and what happened to the ones he was wearing before. Kang picks up the gun and offers it to Kim, saying he thinks it's better if Kim keeps it, The reporter takes the gun and asks why he's giving it to him, and Kang says he doesn't need it and that the man needs something to defend himself. Then he says that from now on, he'll follow his advice no matter what. The reporter asks again if the boy is really okay. Kang stops as he heads toward his motorcycle. He turns around smiling and says he already told him he's fine, so why wouldn't he be? Then the boy says the most important thing is getting out of there as fast as possible. Zombies will probably start gathering there again because of the noise. The reporter looks at the store, thinking. Then he looks at the gun Kang gave him. Scratching his head, he gets back into the car and shuts the door. He says they'd better leave right now, as we see the scene inside the store with the men's bodies scattered around. The group heads out, Jin-ae and Kim in the car, and Kang on his motorcycle. On the way, the girl starts showing signs of waking up. When she opens her eyes, she calls for Mr. Reporter. He asks if she's feeling okay and if she's really awake, and she says yes, and asks what happened. The reporter tells her she can relax now, he already dealt with those bastards. He says Kang won't leave her side, so she doesn't have to worry. Then the girl sees the guy on the motorcycle a little ahead of them. She feels tears welling up. Then she starts crying, and the reporter asks why she's crying if she's hurting anywhere. She asks Mr. Reporter why those people were doing that to her. She only wanted to help them, why would they do something like that to her? Especially at a time like that, when people should be helping each other so everyone can survive. Thinking about everything she's been through up to that point, she says she can't trust anyone in the world anymore. The man says yes, that given the situation, that's probably the best option, but one thing is for sure, even if she can't trust anyone else in the world, she can trust Kang. No matter what happens, that boy will protect her. He adds that Kang would protect her even from him. We see a big building full of apartments. As we go up the floors, we see dirty, empty hallways. In one of the apartments, a zombie is standing in the middle of the living room. Suddenly, something hits it in the back of the neck. It drops to the floor, and Kang is standing behind it with his baseball bat. The boy wonders if it's finally over, and that it looks like there aren't any more zombies nearby. Then he thinks, okay, he'll bring everyone to the room he found earlier. He notices a family photo on top of a dresser showing the zombie he just took out, along with a woman and a child. A little sad from recognizing the zombie as the man in the photo, he apologizes to the man's body and asks him to rest in peace. Back with the group, they ask if he checked all the apartments, and he says yes, at least all the ones that were open. The locked apartments won't be a problem because the zombies will be trapped inside, and they can finally feel a bit safer there and rest. Kang asks why Kim suggested stopping for the night, and asks if it wouldn't be better to keep going, considering they have a car. He explains that it's late, and they're exhausted. It might not make a huge difference, but it feels like things are less dangerous during the day. Plus, the girl needs to rest and recover, so it's better for them to sleep and get their strength back before continuing the trip. Then the boy asks if she'll be okay. The reporter asks how she could be okay after what almost happened to her. In a world where nobody can trust anyone anymore, how desperate must she feel? Kim says that's exactly why the boy's role is important. Pointing at him, he says that in a world where she can't trust anyone except her family, who else could she rely on? Only the man who saved her and protected her, Kang. Feeling awkward, Kang says that can't be right, because technically he only met her today too. The man says yeah, they met today, but they've been through a lot together already, and in times like these, that wouldn't be weird. Then he says he wanted to find a place to rest for a bit because he was worried about Jin-ae, but he's also worried about Kang. Taking out his notepad, he says being a reporter doesn't really mean anything anymore, but he still wants to ask a few more things about Kang. The boy goes quiet, thinking. Then we see a recorder being set on the table, and Kim wonders where they should start. He asks if Kang has any idea why the zombies don't bite him, and the boy says no, he has no idea. He adds that it's not just that they don't bite him, they completely ignore him. The reporter says there has to be some kind of reason behind that. Then he thinks it's only the first day, and they don't have much to go on yet, and asks Kang to tell him if anything new comes up. The boy agrees. The next question is whether the boy ever played any sports, and, surprised, he says no. Kim says, honestly, the fact that he's never played any sports is the most surprising thing so far. He remembers the fights he saw the boy taking on zombies, and thinks that even if the zombies were basically helpless, Kang's strength looked insanely unnatural. So, with Kang looking shocked, he says he hates to put it like this, but the boy didn't even seem human. Then he asks if the boy has any clue where that strength came from. The boy says no, looking kind of sad. The reporter sighs and writes something down in his notebook. Suddenly Kim laughs and apologizes for bugging the guy who saved his life, saying it's just force of habit. Kang says it's fine. Then Kim says the boy is trying to save his sister, and asks if he has any idea where she might be. He says he has no idea, but he plans to go home first. He says he lives in Yangyang, in Gangwon province. The reporter says that's far from there, and he doesn't know if the roads are even still okay all the way there. But the boy says he has to go, there's no other choice. Then he adds that she's his only family. Kim says that these days, even a trip to Yangyang would be a long journey, and asks why he's helping them in the first place. He says it's because it's the right thing to do. Meanwhile, the girl is awake in the room, listening to them talk. Hearing Kang's reasons, her eyes fill with tears. Kim says the boy is too good even for him, and how could the girl not trust a man like that? Kang says he's really not like that and laughs awkwardly. Then the reporter says there's a lot they still don't know, and it's better to stop talking about Kang for now. Since Kang seems to be the one who's seen the zombies up close the most, there's something the reporter needs to ask. Kim asks if he noticed anything unusual about the zombies or infected, whatever he wants to call them, that could help them. The boy says he didn't really stop to observe them. He thinks their senses seem to work, at least hearing and sight, but even that isn't totally certain. Like, if they can see, they can attack. But how the hell do they tell the difference between living people and zombies? Then the girl comes into the room and says the zombies react to exposed human skin. She keeps saying the store manager told her to hide in the stockroom before he got attacked by zombies. The reporter asks if she's okay to stand up, and she says yeah, she just hasn't been able to sleep. Smiling, she apologizes for making him worry and says she's fine now, so he shouldn't worry. Then Kim asks how she knows they react to exposed human skin, and the girl says they tend to crowd around people who have more skin showing. Kang remembers that must be why she asked for long pants before they left. The reporter says the more he learns, the less he understands about zombies, and without knowing how people turn into zombies, it's impossible to really figure everything out. She says they should look for gloves and masks just in case, and then she hears the kitchen radio crackle. Kim asks what's wrong, and she stands up and grabs the kitchen radio, saying it seems like it was on, and she heard static. While she's switching stations, she suddenly hears a message. The message says it's the 6th day since the virus spread, and so far nothing has changed. The radio keeps going, saying that tonight, as the glow of hope keeps fading, MBS noon is starting now. They're shocked, the radio still works. On the radio, they say it's 12:11 a.m., they're live, and it's been 5 days since martial law was declared, but there haven't been any new announcements. Kang says it sounds like they're really live, and Kim asks if MBS is still standing, and if that means the broadcast stations are safe. The boy says probably not, and even if they are, it's more like they're trapped inside the station. He says it doesn't feel like a broadcast, more like a cry for help. The girl says the MBS station isn't far from there and asks what they should do. The journalist pauses to think and says it all depends on Kang's decision. The boy's surprised and asks why him. The journalist says it's obvious if they go, who else besides Kang could sneak in there? Then Kang says that right now, his priority is getting Jin-A safely back to her parents. Only after he gets her to them and makes sure she's safe, then he can think about going somewhere else. She looks awkward listening to him talk, still holding the radio. The reporter says they'll do that first, then. So they decide to rest and sleep, and the girl notices they're still running water, so they can finally take showers after so long. Kang is running, panting hard, naked. While he runs, he looks back. A horde of zombies is catching up to him. A bunch of huge hands reach out to grab him. He ducks down, screaming and trying to protect himself. Crouched there and shaking, he starts crying in panic. Suddenly, his friend asks what he's doing there. He lifts his head and sees his friend Jin Min-hyung asking why he's like that, and then telling him to go eat. In disbelief, he calls his friend's name. His friend, all happy, says he must have worked hard all day, and that he's getting a special dinner. So Kang thinks it was all a dream, that it couldn't be real. He blinks and freaks out. He sees zombies eating someone, biting chunks out of them in different places. His friend asks what's wrong and tells him not to hold back and just eat. Kang looks to the side, terrified, while his friend asks if he likes it. Then he notices his friend is covered in blood, with this creepy smile on his face. And then he looks at himself also covered in blood, hands and mouth smeared with it, and one of his eyes glowing red. Then he wakes up in bed, startled and sweating. Still breathing hard, he starts to calm down. The room has a vanity table next to him with some stuff on top. He's under the covers, and sunlight is coming in. He hears the journalist snoring in the living room and watches him from the bed. He looks at his own hands, trembling. He remembers the dream and thinks there's no way he's turning into one of them. Morning somewhere else in the city. We see a small 3-story building, then a door with some furniture shoved in front of it to block the entrance. A couple is lying in bed, and the man says it's already morning and asks if it's the 6th day yet. The woman says the food's run out, but there's still water coming through, so they can hang on for a few more days. Looking at a photo of Jin-A, she wonders if Jin-A is safe and doing okay. The man says the girl had said a good person saved her, so he figures she must be somewhere safe. Then the woman says that even if she ends up dying, she just wants to see Jin-A one more time. The man hugs her and says at least they got to say goodbye, and he'll take comfort in that. Something catches the man's attention and makes him sit up in bed, asking what that sound was. The woman asks if it's a motorcycle, and it sounds like it's getting closer, while the man says he didn't even know there were still survivors in the area. Then the noise suddenly stops. Looking out the window, he sees Kang on his motorcycle, stopping right in the middle of the zombies. From the window, the man thinks, why is that idiot stopping in the middle of the zombies? Can't he see they're everywhere? The guy checks a piece of paper with some coordinates and says the address should be right, but there's no sign of anyone. Kang thinks with that many zombies around, it's pretty likely they're staying quiet and hiding. Then, grabbing his baseball bat, he wonders if he should clear out the zombies before he starts searching. One of the zombies shows up on his left. He swings his bat and sends the zombie flying several meters away. The couple, watching from the window, are shocked by what they're seeing. The guy starts clearing all the zombies around the building entrance. The man upstairs wonders what the hell that person is. After dealing with the zombies, Kang wonders if that was all of them. Looking at the street, he thinks Kim's car really can't get through there, so he decides that if something happened, he'd rather check first so Jin-ae doesn't get scared. The couple watches the guy sling the baseball bat onto his back and walk toward their building. Then they realize he's actually trying to get into their building, and the guy jumps the wall. The man asks if he should go out, and the woman says no, he doesn't know who the guy is, so why would he just go out like that? Suddenly they hear the guy clearing his throat. Then he yells, asking if this is Park Jin-ae's parents' place, and says he came because she asked him to. He hears some noises from inside the apartment, and suddenly her parents come running toward him, asking if he knows anything about her. The guy, kind of awkward, smiles and says hi. The scene cuts, and the city looks a lot calmer now. Jin-ae's parents get emotional when they see their daughter again and run to hug her with tears in their eyes. Relieved, she runs to hug them back. They hug and take in the moment. Her parents say they're happy she made it back safely, and that she's been doing a great job this whole time. Nobody can hold back happy tears, and Yiwon is glad everything worked out in the end. Kidu says he gets how they feel, but it's kind of dangerous to stay outside, so he asks if it wouldn't be better to keep the thank yous going inside. But Jin-ae's dad grabs his hand and thanks him for the help, saying he'll remember it for the rest of his life. Kidu says he didn't do anything and that all the credit goes to Yiwon, but the MC says that doesn't really matter right now. They finally go inside. When the scene cuts to inside the house, we see some old photos of Jin-ae while her dad tells them everything that happened. He explains that luckily he got off work early that day, and that's how he managed to make it back home. He says he almost died a bunch of times, but he made it home and blocked all the entrances while waiting for someone to come rescue him and his wife. They'd already basically given up on everything, and never imagined they'd get to see their daughter again in a situation like that. And because of that, he really doesn't even know how to express how grateful he is to Yiwon and Kidu. The friend explains again that, actually, he was the one who ended up being saved by Jin-ae and the main guy. Yiwon asks if it's really true they survived 6 whole days without leaving the house, and Jin-ae's dad says, yep, that's exactly what happened. He explains that the power got cut after 2 days, but for some reason the water kept running, and that's why they managed to survive for so long. The mom says they were basically almost out of food and were just waiting for the moment they'd finally give in to hunger. Yiwon mentions that on the way they saw a supermarket that was blocked off. He figures there should still be supplies in there, because if someone had already looted it, it wouldn't still be locked up that tightly. And that their priority right now is getting more food, so Jinna and her parents can make it without any issues. Her dad stands up and asks if the MC really plans on going back outside again, since it's still super dangerous with so many zombies roaming around. But Yiwon says it's just as dangerous to stay if they can't secure food, especially since the two of them haven't eaten in days. Bringing Jinna home might have been hard, but now they also have to think about what comes next. Kidu jumps into the conversation and says he agrees now that everyone's together at home, they need to focus on surviving. The house is well protected, so her parents should be fine as long as they don't leave. Then her dad says he wants to go with them to help, but Yiwon tells him there's no need. He's probably exhausted, and now that Jinna is back, it'd be better if he stayed by her side. Not knowing what to say, the dad gets awkward and kneels in front of the protagonist, thanking him. But Jinna doesn't look too happy about that decision. Then the scene cuts to outside the house. Yiwon is heading out and says he'll be back soon, but then Kidu shows up. Yiwon asks if he's coming too, and Kidu says of course because the MC couldn't carry everything by himself. He pulls up his hood and says they'll need not just food, but also a car and any other supplies they can find. Then he takes out some tools and says they can't keep relying on Yiwon to do everything alone, and promises he won't be dead weight. The kid has no choice but to accept, and once again he says goodbye to everyone, telling them they'll be back soon. The family says goodbye, and the dad asks them to be careful. The two of them hop on the motorcycle and head toward the market. Watching them leave, the parents wonder if they'll really make it back safely. But Jinna says they definitely will, because her big bro always comes back safe. Then the scene cuts to Yiwon already at the market. While Kaidu checks the cars, the MC grabs a baseball bat to defend himself. The place is huge, but they manage to use pliers to cut the lock and get in. They realize it's abandoned, but the shelves are still full, and Kidu can't believe nobody's been in there before. Yiwon says a family of 3 could survive for months with the amount of food there, but Kidu says it could last for years. So without wasting any time, they decide it's time to go shopping. But while they're doing that, the scene cuts somewhere else, a recording studio. We see a reporter talking to someone on the phone. He warns the person they can't keep sending uncertain info and that his time is running out. Still, he keeps writing down what the person says, and when he's done, he hangs up. He checks his notes and says he's gotten a lot of sketchy tips, but it can't be a coincidence that they match the other testimonies he's received. On his paper, there are notes about the protagonist him riding a motorcycle, zombies not attacking him, and the superhuman strength he has. And while the reporter tries to figure out who he is, Yawan keeps grabbing everything he can at the market. He and Kidu finish packing the car with all the supplies they can. According to Kidu, it should be enough to last at least another 6 months. But the MC notices there's a pharmacy nearby, and thinks it might be a good idea to go grab some medicine if there's still any left. As they open the store, Kidu says he feels kind of guilty breaking into places so casually, but Yawan says it's kinda too late to worry about that now. They get inside and realize there's a lot of medicine in there, so it's probably gonna take a little while. Kidu asks Yawan to keep watch at the entrance, while he goes looking for the pharmacy. He explains they can't just run around grabbing random stuff they need, to check the meds carefully. Right then, the MC starts acting weird, and keeps staring at a building across the street. Realizing it's an MBS building, Kidu asks what he's staring at, and the kid asks if the broadcast they heard yesterday really came from MBS. His friend says that now that he mentions it, Jinnah was right, there really was an MBS transmission station nearby. He asks if Yawan is still thinking about the broadcast, and says they don't have time to worry about that right now, especially since they still need to finish helping Jinnah's family, and the MC still has to find his sister. For now, they need to start getting ready, and figure out a way to reach Yang Yang. The MC agrees and says that's what they have to do, but he still looks unsure while checking the conversation he had with his sister. The scene cuts back to Jinnah's parents' house. They finished eating and said it was great. Her dad thanks them again for all the help, and Yawan says they're the ones who should be grateful for the meal. Then he explains they brought enough supplies for the 4 of them to survive for at least 6 months. Her dad asks what he means by the 4 of them, and the MC says he's going to have to head out to look for his missing sister. The man is shocked he's leaving, and the mom asks if he has any idea where his sister might be. Yawan isn't super comfortable with the question, but says that since she lives in Yangyang, she's probably still there. Jinnah's dad explains that's really far from where they are, and it would normally take a long time to get there, especially now, with the roads blocked. But Yawan says he knows, and he still has to go, because she's the only family he has. Jinnah looks kind of sad hearing that, but stays quiet. Then he asks her dad if he finds his sister alive, would it be possible to bring her back to live there with them? He says this is probably the safest place he knows, and his sister doesn't really have any reason to stay in Yangyang anyway. And since zombies don't attack him, the MC could help out with whatever they need. Plus, he'd only really be able to relax if he knew his sister was safe. He ends by promising he'll bring his sister back, so if they can just stay alive until he returns, he'll do anything for them in return. Her dad says that if it's Yawan asking, then sure, if there's room in the house, they'll always be welcome. But he also says Jinnah is only 20, so living together is fine. But marriage is out of the question, clearly misunderstanding what the MC meant. Even her mom joins in and says she wants grandkids as soon as possible, which makes Jinnah totally embarrassed. Luckily for her, the scene cuts to later that day. It's already night. Kidu says that since there's no electricity, once it gets dark the whole city goes pitch black, and if he'd known, he would have bought more candles. Yuan asks if Jinnah's parents already went to sleep, and she says yes, because they were completely exhausted. Kidu says that makes sense after all that stress, it must have hit them hard. The kid notices Kidu writing something down and asks what it is, but his friend says it's just some calculations. He adds that he's figuring out how much food the 2 of them will need if they want to make it to Yangyang. The MC asks what he means by the 2 of them, because he thought he was going alone. Kidu says he's already decided he's coming with him, which pisses him off. But the journalist says they finally made it somewhere safe, and now the MC wants to ditch all that and head out without even knowing how long it'll take. Yuan says if he knows it's dangerous, then why does he want to go? But Kidu says being a journalist is a dangerous job already. And there's still a lot about Yuan he hasn't figured out, so he's not leaving his side until he gets a big scoop. No matter what anyone says, Yuan is still his exclusive story. He remembers the MC saying he had to obey everything he told him if they wanted to survive, but he swears he won't be a burden. Kidu says he's walked all over Gangwon province, which is where they're headed, so he knows all the shortcuts there. Basically, they can leave the navigating to him. Yuan doesn't really have a choice but to agree, so he says he'll trust Kidu and follow his lead once they get there. Jinnah, who'd just been listening, says she just remembered something the 2 of them should bring along. Then she pulls out a walkie-talkie, and the boy asks where she even got that, but she just says it might come in handy since broadcasts are still happening, and that with it, they should be able to get info about what's going on in other areas. But Kidu disagrees, saying the radio station situation probably isn't great. But then out of nowhere, the radio crackles to life, freaking the MC out for a second. The voice on the radio says they've received new updates, based on reports from multiple witnesses in different parts of the country. It's news about a man who isn't attacked by zombies and rides a motorcycle, and when Yuan hears that, he just goes completely blank. Kidu asks Yuan if that message might be talking about him. The message keeps going, saying multiple witnesses have reported it, and that they already know the MC is probably heading towards Central Seoul, and it wonders if he could be the key to ending the zombie crisis. It ends by saying they're still holding on to hope in the middle of all this despair. Then the scene cuts to the radio station. The announcer says he'd hesitated for a long time to share this story about someone who isn't attacked by zombies, because it could cause even more confusion, and maybe even give listeners false hope. But in the end, while stuck in that studio, he decided he wanted to give people at least a spark of hope, whoever was still out there listening, and to tell people trapped in endless despair to never give up. The MC, still listening, hears the man say there's still hope, and that it'll arrive soon. The radio host signs off, saying his name is Sun Jincheol, and Kidu recognizes the name immediately. Then he puts on a song to calm everyone's nerves, and while it plays, Jincheol lets out a relieved sigh. But we see that even he is starting to lose hope, wondering how much longer he'll have to keep spreading that hopeful lie. Back with Yuan's group, they listen in silence while the music plays, and Kidu mentions Jincheol's name, making the MC ask if he knew the guy from before. Kidu starts digging through his pockets and says he should have his number somewhere. He finds the contact on his phone and says they must have met before when he passed through one of the radio station departments. But he's surprised the guy's still keeping his show running after all this time. Yuan asks if the radio program is taking witness reports, and his friend says yeah. Then Yuan says he thinks it's a good idea to tell everyone he's the motorcycle guy. Kidu and Gina are shocked, and Kidu asks why he'd do that. Yuan says it's true, zombies don't bite him, but they don't know why that happens. And he says he doesn't want to go around giving people false hope, he's not that kind of person. Kidu says he gets what he means, but in that world you can't trust people. It could be bad if his identity gets out, but Yuan says that doesn't matter right now. The MC says he can't really imagine it being that dangerous to reveal who he is, but he'll be as careful as possible. Kidu rubs his head, saying if that's how he feels, then there's nothing to do about it, and he says he'll contact Jincheol for him, since the guy would probably only believe it if it came from Kidu. So he calls him. Jincheol picks up and asks if it's Kidu. Kidu confirms it's him, and asks if he's in the middle of a broadcast right now. Jincheol says he's glad he's still alive, and asks if he's somewhere safe. Kidu says he's fine, and says he called because he has something important to tell him. So then he explains about the motorcycle guy, and that he might be one of his companions. Jincheol practically jumps up from his chair and asks if he's serious. He tells the listeners he's taking a break, saying something unexpected came up and they'll play one more song before coming back. Then he turns the music up and goes back to Kidu, asking if he's sure about what he just said. He says a lot of people have claimed they saw the motorcycle guy before, but every single time it turned out to be fake. But Kidu proves he's not messing around and says he swears on his name as a journalist. That's when Jincheol realizes the guy is actually serious. He remembers all the times Kidu sacrificed everything for journalism, going out in the freezing cold, even facing a fire for a story, so he can trust his word. Jincheol says he believes him and asks if the companion he's talking about, the motorcycle guy, was there with him. Kidu and the MC realize this is the moment they've been waiting for. So Yuan grabs the phone and talks directly to Jincheol, telling him he's the motorcycle guy. Jincheol says there's something he wants to ask first, while we see people all around the city trying to survive. He explains that, to the listeners, the motorcycle guy means a lot to the people fighting through extreme situations. And for those people, the idea that someone exists who can't be bitten by zombies is their last hope. So he asks Yuan straight up if he really is someone who can't be bitten by zombies. The kid takes a second to breathe, then answers loud and clear, yes. He says he has no idea why, but the infected don't go after him. They ignore him and don't even seem to react to his voice. As he says this, Jincheol writes down every word coming out of the main guy's mouth. But then the kid says he's not the person who can bring everyone hope like they're expecting. He says he's helped a lot of people because of this ability, but he's just one guy, and he has limits too. Jincheol sighs and says that even with Kidu's word as a journalist, he can only share information that can be verified. And he asks how Yuan could prove that the infected don't attack him. The MC stays quiet for a moment, then asks if the area near MBS wasn't packed with infected surrounding it. And finally he says he'll go there alone to prove it. Jincheol asks if he's seriously saying he'll come to the studio by himself. And the kid says if that's what he has to do to make them believe him, then yes he will. Jincheol is speechless for a second, but then says okay because if the infected haven't bitten him up to now, it shouldn't be that hard for him. He explains he's on the 8th floor of the station, and warns the MC that the place is almost completely overrun with infected. Yuan says that's fine, and that he'll meet him tomorrow, and the man says he'll be waiting. Before hanging up, he has one more message for Kidu, who flinches when he suddenly hears his name. But Jincheol just says he wasn't expecting to hear news about him in a situation like that, and tells him to be careful too. Kidu says he will, and that he'll find a way to meet up with him soon as well. Finally, the DJ wishes him good luck, and hangs up. Even so, he still can't believe someone exists that zombies completely ignore. But if it's really true, he believes Yuan isn't just a sign of hope, he's basically salvation in person. Then we cut to the next day. The sky is sunny, and the MC says he's already reached the area around it, and there aren't any zombies on the way to the car. Kidu gets ready and says it's time for them to go. Jinna's mom hands Yuan a box and tells him to take it with him. Inside are some rice cakes. The ingredients aren't the best, but she hopes it helps. He smiles and thanks her, saying he'll definitely eat all of them. That makes her really happy. She asks him to be careful, and says they'll be waiting until he brings her daughter back safely. After that, Jinna comes over to talk to the MC before he leaves. She looks worried, and Yawan tells her she doesn't need to worry because zombies don't bite him. But he can't even finish his sentence because the girl runs up to him and hugs him. He thanks her for everything and says he has to come back alive no matter what happens. And, kind of awkwardly, he says she really doesn't need to worry, he'll definitely come back safe. Her dad, watching all of this, cuts in and says again that it's fine for them to go on a date, but it's way too early to be talking about marriage, which makes his daughter super embarrassed. With everything ready, the MC says goodbye one last time, leaving the family behind while they tell him to be careful out there. Then the scene cuts to near the MBS building, which, like they said before, is completely overrun with zombies. Yawan shows up and immediately starts smashing them all with a baseball bat, while Kidu stays in the car. And like expected, none of them seem to fight back. The guy says there are way more zombies than he thought, and that he won't be able to stay hidden inside if he lets them keep wandering around. Kidu says he'll leave the rest to him, so the MC takes a breath and says it's already rough right from the start, but there's not much he can do. He apologizes as he points the bat at the zombies and says, unfortunately, he's gonna have to go through all of them. Inside the building, Jincheol is collapsed on the floor, totally worn out. He says he feels really weak, like his body has finally hit its limit. We see his water and food ran out days ago. He says he won't be able to do the broadcast today, and that if he'd known this was the end, he would have at least left a goodbye message on yesterday's show. It sucks for him, because even though he didn't expect to last long, he at least wanted to know the truth about the motorcycle guy. Just as he's about to close his eyes, he gets a call from Kidu on his phone. He answers, and Kidu asks if he's still okay. The DJ says he's still breathing, which makes Kidu relieved he didn't get there too late. Jincheol says he doesn't get what he means by too late, and asks where Kidu even is right now. Kidu says he's outside MBS, and Jincheol is shocked he actually went there, saying the entrance is packed with infected. Kidu asks if they can do a video call, and the guy doesn't understand why he wants that now. When they start the call, Kidu turns the phone toward the outside of the car and shows the DJ what's happening. On the screen, he can see the MC in the middle of the zombies, beating them all down by himself, and the zombies are completely ignoring him. Kidu says if it were him out there instead of in the car, it'd be way worse, but with Yawan it's different. And Jincheol watches all of it, finally realizing the motorcycle guy really was real, and he's right there in front of him. The fight ends, and the place is covered in the bodies of the defeated zombies while Yuan stops to catch his breath. Then he tells Kidu he can get out of the car now. His friend says those zombies weren't messing around, and if it weren't for him, nobody would have been able to get into the radio station. Yuan finds a shield that belonged to one of the cops who got attacked by the zombies, and says they can use it if they need to. Kidu worries there might still be zombies inside the building, but Yuan says as long as he stays close, it'll be fine. The building is huge, and it's really easy to get lost inside, but Kidu says he knows the layout and he'll guide them through. Yuan says he'll trust his partner on that, and the two of them go inside. Inside, the place is completely abandoned, and Yuan says there probably aren't any zombies or other survivors in there. They keep exploring, and Kidu asks if everyone there managed to escape when the incident happened. Yuan looks thoughtful, and says he has a question for Kidu too. He asks why that DJ works so hard to keep his show on the air, even with how horrible his living conditions are. Kidu thinks for a bit before answering, then says he figures it's some kind of sense of responsibility, because even before the incident, he was already a radio host, so he wants to keep sharing information, if that's the only way he can help. Yuan says that both the DJ and Kidu are really impressive people, in his eyes. Since Kidu's a journalist, he's also gathering info, trying to solve that crisis in whatever way he can. But he feels pathetic because there's nothing he can really do. Hearing that, Kidu clearly doesn't like the answer, because he smacks the kid with the shield right in the back. Yuan asks why he did that, and the reporter says it was for Gina. She probably would have done the same if she heard him talking like that. Kidu says Yuan is the only person in that whole world who could live a peaceful life even in the middle of the zombies, if he wanted to. He could have chosen a way to escape on his own if he felt like it honestly. He could do whatever he wanted, and nobody would be able to stop him. But even so, he decided to stay, saving Kidu and Jinna in the process, and now he's fighting to save DJ too. Even if it was something only Yuan could do, what really mattered in the end was that he chose to stay and do the right thing for everyone. Kidu says that in that world there were a lot of people driven by cruelty, not just survival instinct, thinking back to what those guys did to Gina at the gas station. So what's so pathetic about wanting to help people out of pure goodwill, like Yuan's been doing? And he swears nobody else in the whole world could have done what he did. Yuan smiles at what his friend says and thanks him for the words. After that calm moment, they reach the 8th floor where DJ was, and decide to go through the door that leads to his studio. Very carefully, they move down the hallway, trying not to make any noise. The MC thinks it's weird how quiet the place is, but he keeps looking. DJ had said his studio was through a door at the end of the hallway on the left. They find it quickly, but just as Kidu is about to call out to his friend, they feel someone watching them from far away. And when they turn to look, they see an infected person screaming and running straight at them. Yuan shoves Kidu to protect him from the zombie's attack, sending him away. The kid stays in front to stop the zombie from getting past, but then the unexpected happens, the zombie bites Yuan's arm. Kidu is shocked when he sees that, and the MC manages to shove the infected away, making her slam into the wall and stop moving for the moment. After the fight, Kidu asks if the kid is okay, while he looks at the bite on his arm. Yuan starts wondering what's going to happen to him now, and if he's going to end up turning like the other infected. Kidu asks if he really got bitten, and Yuan asks if he still has it, which confuses his friend, asking what he's even talking about. That's when the kid reveals he means his weapon. The reporter, still not getting what the kid meant, checks his pockets and says yeah, he still has the weapon on him. But then he realizes what the MC intends to do with it and asks what the hell he's thinking, but the kid ignores him and heads to the room where the unconscious zombie was. He grabs the bat and says that, before anything else, they need to get things under control, and we see the zombie on the floor twitching. Then Yuan says he can't lose consciousness yet. While his mind is still working, he has to do whatever he can to help. The kid raises the bat, ready to deliver the final blow, but at the last second, he hears a scared voice telling him to wait. The voice is that infected woman, who a little while ago was on the floor, but now seems to be back to normal and begs Yuan not to hit her. Not understanding anything that just happened, Yuan just stands there, frozen, waiting. Then the woman looks at him and asks him to save her, saying she hadn't done anything wrong. Kidu asks if, in the end, she was never infected in the first place, but that wasn't possible, because she chased him and even bit Yuan's arm. The MC is still confused, but seeing the woman crying, he decides to take her with them into the studio, since that place was still dangerous. But Kidu asks if he's lost his mind, since that woman bit his arm and could be dangerous. But Yuan says that, like he can see, she's not infected anymore, and they can't just leave her there alone. And they decide the best idea is to keep talking somewhere safer, which Kidu agrees with, but before that, he notices something weird. The reporter points at Yuan's arm, and when he looks at the wound, it already looks completely healed, leaving the kid totally confused. While all that was going on, we see the DJ is still inside the studio. He doesn't look too great, and he's wondering what all that noise he was hearing was about. Right then, he gets a call from Kidu, asking if he's still at Studio 6, and the DJ says yes. The reporter says he's right in front of the studio door, and asks his friend to open up so he can come in. The DJ's happy to hear his friend made it there safely, and asks how things look around the studio. Kidu says there aren't any infected nearby anymore. Jinchul says he'll open the door, but before that Kidu warns him there's someone with them who was infected, though she isn't anymore. They go into the studio and give Jinchul and the woman some food, since neither of them has eaten in days. Kidu says he's impressed, his friend kept the broadcast going for a whole week, and Yuan says Jinchul can eat as much as he wants, because they've still got plenty of food left. Jinchul says that's enough for him, and luckily he'd had a bit of food in the studio for a while too, and compared to that woman who hadn't eaten anything for a week, he was actually doing better. Speaking of her, the woman finishes drinking her water and thanks Yuan for saving her life, saying she doesn't even know how she could ever repay him. Kidu says she introduced herself as Choi Sujin and asks if she has any connection to the broadcasting station. Sujin says no, she actually worked at a department store. She'd gone to the station to talk to them about a sponsorship, but on the way there the highway turned into total chaos. She says she heard screaming everywhere, and realizing something bad was happening, she tried to get away as fast as she could, but while she was moving through the floors, she ran into a crowd of infected zombies. They all rushed her while she screamed in fear, and the rest we already know. Sujin says she doesn't remember anything after the attack, it was like she fell into some kind of deep sleep. Everyone in the room goes quiet after hearing her story. The one who breaks the silence is Jinchul. He says he knows she must be confused, but he wants to ask her something. He asks what the first thing she can remember is after being attacked. Sujin thinks for a moment and says the first thing she remembers is hearing two voices, probably Yuan's and Kidu's. She explains that at first they were really faint, and little by little they got clearer. But the next thing she remembers is tasting blood, Yuan's blood. The taste was really strong, and she says even now she can still kind of feel it on her lips, and from the look on her face, she seemed to have liked it. Kidu already gets what all that means and asks the MC if that's what he's thinking too. Jinchul cuts in and says they must be exhausted, and it's better to continue the conversation later. The scene cuts to later that night. Sujin is sleeping peacefully on the couch like nothing happened. Meanwhile, the other three are talking in the next room about what they just found out. Jinchul asks if they're sure she was infected before, and Kidu says yeah, no doubt about it, she chased him when they entered the building. The DJ goes over what happened, how she tried to attack Kidu, but ended up biting Yuan, and when they realized it, she'd suddenly gone back to normal out of nowhere. He also mentions the bite wound on the main guy's arm. Not only did it heal, but it also hasn't turned him into an infected, at least not yet. Kidu says he knows it's really hard to believe all of this, but his friend says he actually does believe them, because he already saw Yuan fighting right in the middle of the zombies and none of them attacked the kid, so at this point, there's nothing he wouldn't believe anymore. Hearing that story actually made Jinchul come up with a theory, and Kidu asks what he means by that. So the DJ explains that so far nobody's been able to figure out what caused the infections, and everything happened so fast that the government's martial law didn't do anything. But the most accepted theory is that it was a virus spread through the air, and that people turning into zombies is basically some kind of disease. Kidu pushes back, saying it doesn't make sense if the virus spreads through the air, then how come they haven't gotten infected yet? And Jincheol says maybe they're part of a primary group of people who are immune to the airborne infection, but they're not immune to bites, since the virus is also spread through saliva, and that can infect them that way. What he's getting at is that maybe Yuan's body has moved past that stage of immunity, and he's immune to both the airborne virus and bites. And to top it off, he points out that Sujin tasted Yuan's blood and then came back to her senses afterward. So his body isn't just immune, it might actually work like a vaccine for infected people. The MC asks if he's serious, and the guy says it's just a theory, but right now it's the one that makes the most sense to them. Since they just got hit with a ton of info at once, Kidu tells them to slow down and starts going over the theory again. Basically, Sujin got cured from the zombie state after biting the MC's arm and drinking his blood. Kidu asks if it's even possible for the virus to be wiped out that fast, and Jincheol says normally that would be impossible. But with what they're dealing with right now, and everything they've already seen, he doesn't even know if he can call anything impossible anymore. With no real comeback to that, Kidu goes quiet. Jincheol says that would also explain why the zombies don't attack Yuan, and that even a small amount of his blood might be enough to cure infected people. He starts to say the MC could be the key to ending all of this, but the kid cuts him off. He says if what the DJ said is true, if infected people can be cured, then that means they're not totally gone, and they can still be saved. But more than that, Yuan remembers all the people he's already killed, and how they were still human and could have been saved, and he just didn't know. Kidu tries to calm him down, but the kid can't think straight anymore. He's in shock, realizing that up until now he's been fighting people who might have been curable. But the reporter yells at him and asks if he's already forgotten all the people he's saved so far, saying that in that world, he didn't have a choice, he did what he had to do so everyone could survive. He's seen other humans who were way worse than the zombies, so nobody has the right to judge the protagonist. Then we're reminded of all the people Yuan has saved up to now. Jincheol cuts in and says instead of just talking about it, why don't they check for themselves how many people he's saved? The DJ gets the big idea to have Yuan appear on the radio show broadcast, basically revealing who he really is. And of course the kid gets nervous as soon as he hears that. The scene cuts to a little later that night. Yuan video calls Jinna, and she asks if he really plans to show up on the next broadcast. He says he agreed because Jincheol thought it was a good idea, but she says she's relieved he at least made it safely to the station. The protagonist still isn't sure if he's really this amazing person Jincheol thinks he is, and he says he's scared of giving people false hope. But Jinna tells him that, to her, nobody in that world is more amazing than he is. And she says his sister might listen to the broadcast too, so he needs to do the best he can. He thanks her for what she said, and Jinna says she has to hang up to save phone battery, and Yuan asks her to send a hug to her parents too. Sujin, who heard the whole conversation, asks if that was his girlfriend, which makes him awkwardly say she got it all wrong. But she says the way Jinna was talking, she definitely sees Yuan as someone really special to her. Hyung teases him, saying even her parents already think they're a couple, so he should just admit it already, which makes the guy super awkward. Jincheol cuts in again and asks if everyone rested well, because they're about to start the broadcast. Yuan, clearly nervous, asks what happens if he says something wrong, since it's a live show. But the DJ says with how the world is right now, nobody's gonna care if he messes up a little. The MC agrees and goes with him into the studio. He tells him not to put so much pressure on himself, because just confirming that the motorcycle guy is real is already going to give everyone hope. The broadcast starts, and Jincheol introduces himself to the listeners like usual. He chats with them, saying that even in times when they have to save energy, he's still gotten tons of supportive messages from everyone. And to pay that kindness back, today he's having his first guest on the show. Then he introduces the MC, who's completely nervous, especially when Jincheol calls him the motorcycle guy and says his full name on live radio. The DJ asks him to say a few words to the listeners, and the guy totally freezes up, even stuttering when he tries to say his name. Yuan introduces himself properly, saying he's 28 and used to work at a funeral home, while Hyung and Sujin are outside laughing at how nervous he is. Jincheol says they've gotten a lot of accounts from people claiming they've seen Yuan, so he wants to start with the most important question. He asks if it's really true that the infected don't attack him. Yuan says yes, and we see people in a shelter listening to every word. The DJ says he gets why it's hard for listeners to believe, but he swears he saw it all himself. Then he says he's heard Yuan is traveling east, and asks if he has a goal in mind. Yuan says he's heading to Yangyang in Gangwon province, because his family lives there. Jincheol is about to send a message to the people of Yangyang, but he gets interrupted by a message from a listener in Sokcho, and the MC feels relieved because that's close to Yangyang. But the DJ is shocked by the message, and Yuan asks why he suddenly made that face. Jincheol says that according to the message, the listener said they fled from Yangyang to Sokcho, and that was because the military had already been through there, and there was nothing left of the city. Then we see the city completely destroyed and on fire. Yuan can't believe what he just heard, and asks if he's serious. Kidu asks if the military really just showed up and bombed all of Yangyang in one go. But the DJ says they need to clear a few things up first. The message said the military took some kind of action in Yangyang. It's just that the part where it says there was nothing left is kind of weird, because it doesn't say whether they meant humans or infected. He says they need to understand the situation better before jumping to conclusions, and asks the listener to send more info if they can. Yuan asks if the army has done anything since the incident happened, and the DJ explains that yes, they declared martial law right on the first day of the crisis. But they haven't done much beyond that, and there are reports the military is actually pulling out of the metro area, which is causing even more chaos. Trying to cheer Yuan up, the DJ says it might have been different in Yangyang. Maybe the military saved everyone there and moved them to safe areas. The MC says his sister loved listening to the radio. Ever since they were kids, they listened together, and she always said it made their home feel less lonely. And he's sure she's listening to this broadcast right now, so he doesn't care what's happening in Yangyang. He's going there to find her no matter what. He sends a message straight to his sister, telling her not to give up hope and to wait for him just a little longer, because he's definitely going to save her. The broadcast ends, and Jincheol thanks the MC for doing a great job, saying lots of listeners sent encouraging messages and that they felt stronger because of him too. Kidu jokes that Yuan was totally frozen at first, but after a while he started speaking well, and says maybe the kid's got a future as a radio host, and he'd better get used to it, because once the world goes back to normal, he's gonna get invited to do interviews on a bunch of shows. He might even end up becoming a celebrity. But Kidu also makes it clear that Yuan is his big scoop, and that he should remember that. Sujin asks Jincheol something important. Why didn't he mention on the broadcast that she'd been cured, since that could have given listeners hope too? The DJ thinks for a moment, and says he actually chose not to say it for Yuan's sake. He asks how they think the world would react if people found out Yuan's blood can cure the infected. Best case, he'd be seen as a heroic savior, the last hope for humanity. But worst case, people would see him as a resource, and he'd get locked up in a lab and spend the rest of his life as a government test subject. Jincheol tells the kid to keep it secret if he can, because they don't know if they can trust the government or the military. And for now, they need to focus on finding and saving his sister, something Yuan agrees with. Still looking lost in thought, Yuan says he wants to go walk around by himself, and Kidu asks why he suddenly wants to do that. Yuan says they still haven't had a chance to explore the whole KBS building, and just to be safe, he wants to take a better look and see if there's anything important they missed. Kidu can tell the kid isn't doing great, so he hands him the baseball bat and tells him to take it, just in case something happens. Yuan asks if he really needs to bring it, since he's just going to look around, but Kidu insists it could come in handy. He says he gets how Yuan feels, but he still can't go wandering around with his guard down, and that he can keep being selfish until his sister is safe. Yuan takes the weapon and thanks him, tells everyone he'll be right back, and leaves the room, leaving the three of them there talking. Jincheol says Yuan really needs someone like Kidu around, because he's kind-hearted, but he doesn't have much willpower, and with how many struggles he still has ahead of him, having a good heart won't always make his life easier. Then we see Yuan has already made it to the first floor of the building, and there he finds another infected woman who, like the other zombies, ignores him. He thinks about hitting her with the bat and ending the threat, but decides to just turn his back and ignore her. While we hear Jincheol saying that living in times like these with Yuan's personality, it's only natural his heart has already been broken over and over. But every time Yuan's heart breaks, Kidu is there to help him back up, and that's how he gets stronger. The DJ finishes by saying that even with the abilities Yuan has, he won't make it to Yangyang without Kidu's help. Hearing that, the reporter says of course he'll help, because the main character isn't just his big scoop, he's also his savior. Sujin, who's been quiet until now, asks if it's true Kidu is going to Yangyang alone with him, and the reporter confirms it. She asks if she can go with them too, which catches Kidu off guard. He asks if she has some connection to the city they're going to. She says she does, and that she was surprised when Yuan said the city's name during the broadcast, and she explains that her dad wasn't just in the military, he was the commander of Yangyang's 4th Brigade. Then the scene cuts to a flashback of Yuan with his sister. She's helping an elderly woman and gives her some money, which makes the woman feel awkward, but his sister says she still has plenty, so she shouldn't worry. Che smiles and tells her to use it to have lunch with her grandkids, and to make sure she never has to go without a meal. She says goodbye to the woman while Yuan stays quiet, watching everything. After the woman leaves, he says it's fine that she helps people, but she didn't have to give her money because he knows his sister's been struggling to even buy her own lunch. But Che says she actually makes good money, so she can treat older people to lunch once in a while. Also, she always sees that older lady going up and down the hill picking up trash, even though it's not her job. She says that's just kindness, and the world is full of that invisible kind of goodwill, and that's why human beings can live together. And at the end she says she'd like to see her brother become a good person like that, asking if he thinks he can do it. Back in the present, Yuan is sitting on a bench checking messages on his phone, and so far he still hasn't gotten any reply from his sister. While the kid sits there thinking about what to do, the scene cuts to the studio. There, Soojin keeps talking about her dad, saying he's Colonel Choi Young-hil, who got transferred to Yongyang last year. According to her, her whole family moved with him except her, since she stayed in Seoul because of work. Ki-doo realizes she must be really worried about her family after seeing how the world changed in just a week, and that she feels safe with Yuan. But more importantly, it looks like the reporter recognized Soojin's father's name. Jin Cheol cuts into his friend's thoughts, saying it might not be a bad idea to take Soojin with them. If the report they got is true, then there's a good chance her dad's unit is the one holding Yang Yang right now. Even if they make it to Yongyang, the military would probably stop them from getting in, since they're blocking all the entrances. But if they showed up with someone from the commander's family, that's a different story. They'd have a better chance of being let through. Plus, there's probably no safer place for Soojin in the city than a military base. He knows the road to Yangyang is going to be dangerous, since they'll have to get past a bunch of infected on the way, but it's better than just staying there doing nothing. Soojin says if they're okay with it, then she's in, because honestly, she just wants to go home. Jin Cheol says he gets it, but they should talk to Yuan when he gets back. Cut to later. Yuan is back and says he's fine with her coming with them, since her family is in Yongyang too. Ki-doo says he doesn't seem that worried, and reminds him they're not going to Yongyang for fun. Yuan says he knows, but anyone would be worried about their family in a situation like this, just like he's worried about his sister. Soojin smiles and thanks them, saying she promises she won't be a burden to them. With that settled, they ask Jin Cheol what he's going to do now, and he says he'll keep doing his show right from there, now that he's seen a new reason to hope. He says he knows the trip to Yangyang won't be easy, but he asks them to check in and send him info whenever they can. Even though he's already gotten a lot of info from listeners, anything about military bases is still really limited. Communication in the main regions has been cut off, and if the army is still operating, there's a good chance they move their bases out to one of the provinces. So whatever information they can pick up on the way to Yangyang will be a huge help to survivors listening to his broadcast. The DJ says he hopes Yuan can find his sister, but that he'll stay there doing his job while he waits for them to come back. Yuan smiles and says they'll definitely come back alive. Before leaving, they set aside some supplies so Jin Cheol can survive, and tell him it should last at least another month. The man asks if it's really okay to leave that food with him instead of taking it for the trip, but Ki-doo says they can just swing by the market again and grab more. Yuan tells him the 8th floor is safe, so he doesn't have to stay locked in the studio all the time. Jin Cheol thanks them again and says he hopes that someday he can do another broadcast with Yuan, and with Yuan's sister too, if possible. The three of them shake hands, and the DJ wishes them luck on the journey. Then they all head out with Soojin, saying goodbye to their friend. But before that, we see a scene where Jin Cheol remembers when he'd lost hope, and realizes he doesn't have to fake it on his show anymore. Then the MC gets on his motorcycle and asks if Ki-doo's ready, because he's going full speed. His friend is driving the car with Soojin in the passenger seat, and tells the MC he's ready to go. They take off at full speed through the wrecked city, while Yuan doubles down on the promise he made to his sister, saying he's definitely going to rescue her. Then the scene cuts again, and we see a door barricaded with a bunch of furniture to keep the infected from getting in. In the corner of the room, a young woman is sitting with her daughter sleeping peacefully in her lap. She says everything's going to be okay because her mom is there with her, and she says she also heard it on the radio, the message telling them to just hold on a little longer. And when the shot widens, we see that the mom is actually Che, Yuan's sister. She says their uncle will be there soon to get them out of that place. The scene cuts again, this time to a highway packed with abandoned cars. Yuan and his group realize that even on motorcycles, there's no way they're getting through with that many cars. Ki-doo says he figured it wouldn't be easy, but they barely even made it out of Seoul, and they've already hit a roadblock like this. Now they're going to have to take a huge detour. Soojin says maybe it's a good idea to take Route 86, since it's not a highway, so there should be fewer cars in the way. Ki-doo agrees and yells for the main guy to turn around, so they can take that other route. Yuan hears his friend but ignores him, because he notices a family among the cars gone for good after trying to protect their kid. With no real options, the MC just looks away and answers Ki-doo, saying he's on it. They keep going. Along the way, they get lost, run into a bunch of infected, and stop a few times to eat. Every now and then Yuan checks his phone, hoping for a message from his sister, but so far, nothing. When night falls, they park near an empty stadium so they can rest. The next day they hit the road again, but the way is blocked by a bunch of fallen trees. Yuan starts getting impatient, and Ki-doo explains there are a lot of roads, but they need to figure out which ones still lead to Yangyang. They could take the main road, but it'd be way too dangerous with the infected, so they need to find a safer route. So the group decides to stop there and take a break. Since it's a pretty isolated forest, there shouldn't be much risk of infected coming through. Ki-doo gets out of the car to stretch. After staring at maps all day, he's just happy to finally get some fresh air. Soojin says she's going to take a walk to clear her head, and the MC tells her to be careful. Ki-doo asks if it's really okay to let her wander around alone, but Yuan says it's not like they can follow her everywhere. and since it's basically an empty mountain, they figure she'll be fine anyway. Kidu still worries about her, wondering if she can even keep up with them, since they haven't really stopped in days and she's probably trying not to slow them down. The scene cuts to Sujin out in the brush. She hates having to go off alone to use the bathroom, but she says she'd rather not complain since she's the one who insisted on coming with them. But then she suddenly feels like someone's watching her, and when she looks back, she sees someone in military clothes pointing a gun at her. She screams, and that gets Kidu and the protagonist's attention. The MC tells his friend to start the car and stay hidden until he gets back. Yawan runs into the forest calling for her, trying to figure out what's going on. But on the way, he gets stopped too. The same military guy points the gun at him and tells him to drop the baton. With no choice, Yawan tosses the baton on the ground and gives up. The guy asks what the two of them are doing in that area. Yawan realizes he's a survivor, but he doesn't really look like a soldier, and he wonders how he even got that gun. The guy gets impatient and tells Yawan to answer already. Meanwhile, Sujin is off to the side with her hands on her head, terrified. Yawan explains he was with Sujin, and when he heard her scream he ran over, thinking something had happened to her. The survivor doesn't look convinced and says there's nothing on that mountain. So what exactly were they doing there? Yawan says they're heading to Yangyang to meet his family, but they got lost on the way, so they decided to stop there for a break. That seems to be enough to convince him. He lowers his gun and apologizes for the misunderstanding. He explains that it was rude of him to act like that, and that he'd noticed some movement in the mountains and thought it might be infected. The guy reaches out a hand to help Sujin up and says he didn't think there'd be any survivors in that area. He takes off his helmet and introduces himself as Jang Taehun, apologizing for scaring the two of them like that. Yuan introduces himself and thinks the guy is way more polite than he expected. Right then, Kidu comes running up, asking if they're okay. Taehun says it looks like they've got more people with them and asks how many there are total. The MC answers that it's really just the three of them. The man still seems kind of suspicious of them and gives Sujin a weird look, but he says they probably need somewhere to rest and asks if they want to come with him. Where he's staying isn't exactly comfortable, but he says it's better than sleeping on the ground and there are a bunch of empty rooms, and we see the place he meant is an old abandoned motel that looks pretty big. Taehun explains that it used to be a boarding house and that he got lucky being able to use it as a shelter. It's safe, but since there are a lot of people living there, they're barely managing to get by. Sujin asks how many people he's talking about, and the guy says around 30, including some kids. Kidu's surprised and says that with no stores nearby, food has got to be a serious problem. Taehun agrees and says food is always a problem, that's why he went into the forest to see if he could find anything. One time he tried to grab supplies from a market downtown, but now the place is packed with infected and he can't even get close. He heard about a warehouse nearby and was heading there, but took a detour through the mountains to avoid running into the infected. Kidu says a warehouse would definitely have enough supplies to support 30 people. And Yuan asks if Taehun doesn't think it's way too dangerous to go into the mountains for food, especially completely alone. Taehun says that's exactly why he went alone if something goes wrong. They need to keep the risk as low as possible, and there's no reason for anyone else to put themselves in danger. The protagonist's surprised by that and says that even so, if he wants to bring food back for 30 people, he'd need help carrying it. Taehun doesn't even get a chance to answer, because he hears footsteps and immediately gets his weapon ready. Then a whole group of infected comes out of the forest. Taehun tells Yuan to get behind him while he aims at the zombies. Kidu realizes there are a lot of them and wonders how they managed to draw so many infected in one place. In the middle of all that, Yuan shows why he's the protagonist. He steps forward and tells Taehun to save his ammo, because you never know when you'll need it in a critical moment, and of course Taehun is totally confused hearing that. But the MC grabs his baseball bat and says he'll handle them himself. The infected start closing in and surrounding the group. Taehun starts yelling that there's no way he can beat all those zombies alone, but Kidu cuts him off. He tells him to just trust Yuan for now to deal with it, and that he'll understand why pretty soon. The zombies keep coming, and the kid just stands there in front of them, but like expected, they all keep walking past like he isn't even there. Taehun is obviously completely confused watching all of this. Then the MC grabs one of the infected by the clothes and throws him away, and the body ends up slamming into other infected on the way. One by one, Yuan starts smashing all of them with his baseball bat. Since he's used to fighting, he does it all at this insane speed. Taehun reacts like everyone does when they see Yuan fight, saying it's unbelievable he's that strong. But the most important thing is that none of the infected are attacking the kid. He's just standing there in the middle of a pile of zombies he took down easily. Kidu says Taehun must not have been listening to the radio much lately, and tells him the zombies don't bite Yuan, even if it's hard to believe. Yuan goes back to what they were talking about before, and explains that even if Taehun finds the warehouse, he won't be able to haul food back by himself without a vehicle. And he invites Taehun to come with them in their car, saying they'll help him transport the supplies. Then the scene cuts to the motel where Taehun's been staying. We see a bunch of armed guards setting up a patrol at the entrance. We also see Yuan's group coming up in the distance, and the guards are shocked that someone actually drove there because, according to them, nobody was supposed to know where that shelter was. One of the guards even points his gun at them, saying he still doesn't know what their intentions are. The car stops and Taehoon shows up, yelling at them to put their weapons down. They recognize him right away and lower their guns, calling him Captain. When they ask who the people with him are, Taehoon explains they found the storage depot, and that the MC's group helped him bring food back for everyone. They open the car, and it's packed with boxes of food, everything from canned goods to rice. Everyone's super happy, because now the kids can finally eat properly, and they decide to go inside and start making lunch. Yeon asks if the food will really be enough for 30 people, but Taehoon says that for now, just having emergency food is already enough. Plus, now they know where the depot is, so they can go back later and grab more. He says it was all thanks to Yeon's ability and thanks him, which makes the MC feel awkward. Taehoon says that even though he needed their help, he also wants to introduce Yeon to someone. Yeon's confused about who it could be, but then he hears a voice, and Taehoon says she couldn't have shown up at a better time. And we see the person he wanted to introduce, a young woman in a lab coat, which makes Yeon wonder if she's a doctor or not. She asks Taehoon what happened, since he said he wouldn't be back at the shelter until the day after tomorrow, but he explains something happened on the way. He tells her he ran into the group, and thanks to them, he found a depot with plenty of food so they won't have to worry about that for a while. Taehoon introduces her, saying she's Dr. Han Soyun, and she's been taking care of them since they arrived at the shelter. She gets a little embarrassed and says that really, Taehoon's the one protecting everyone there, and since she's only in her second year, being called doctor feels like a bit much. Hearing that, Yeon realizes everyone there seems to really respect Taehoon. Earlier the guards even called him captain, and he's basically responsible for the lives of 30 people in that shelter. Soyun asks how they managed to get there, and Yeon says it's a long story, but they're traveling to Yangyang and got lost. She says that's really far, and the roads out there must be in terrible shape. He agrees, and says they tried taking smaller roads, but ended up in the mountains by accident. Then they get interrupted by a young guy named Ma Young-ho, calling for the captain. He rushes Taehoon, saying Taehoon told him to stand watch while they move the supplies, and Taehoon realizes they're wasting time outside, and tells everyone to bring everything in. The captain goes in with them, but first he asks Ma Young-ho to help with the supplies, and the kid doesn't look too happy about the visitors. Later, at sunset, everyone stops to eat and rest after a long, exhausting day. It's been so long since they ate that a lot of them almost choke because they're eating way too fast. Yeon's surprised there are so many kids there, and Taehoon explains that including the babies, there are 9 children total. He says the hotel had a separate dining area, and at first they were able to get all the food they needed from there, but it ran out faster than they expected. At least meeting the MC solved their food problem, and that's why Taehoon says he's incredibly grateful for everything they did. Yeon gets awkward and says there's nothing to thank them, for they should be thanking Taehoon for giving them shelter. But then he asks Taehoon why everyone keeps calling him captain all the time. Taehoon says it can feel kind of suffocating sometimes, but he decided to accept the title as a way to reassure the people in the shelter. Yeon doesn't really get what he means, but they're interrupted when a man shows up saying the doctor was looking for them. Seeing that Dr. Han has a lot of questions, they decide to go see what she wants. The scene cuts to the doctor's office, and they've already told her the whole story about the infected and how they don't attack Yeon. She's basically speechless when she finds out the MC has never even been bitten, not even scratched by the infected. Obviously, they didn't mention Sujin's bite. Yeon tells the same story as always. The zombies act like he's invisible and don't even go for him. Taehoon backs it all up, saying Yeon didn't even have to step in earlier when they got surrounded by a horde of infected, even though the MC was totally defenseless right in the middle of them. The guy still can't believe what he saw and asks the doctor if she has any idea what's going on. She looks confused and says there's probably some kind of medical explanation for Yeon's condition, but they won't know anything for sure until they run some tests on his body. Ki-do is writing down every word she says. She thinks this zombie outbreak was caused by some kind of infection, but she still can't confirm it. Yeon asks her, if this contamination really was caused by some kind of virus, wouldn't it be possible to make a vaccine? Soyun says, in theory, yeah, but for now it's just a possibility. Since hospital infrastructure has been destroyed, and they don't have trained professionals to help develop a cure, the chances of success are basically zero. And she finishes by saying that even if he's immune, that doesn't automatically mean you can make a cure from it. But we know Yeon has a way to cure people, and after thinking for a second, he asks the doctor what would happen if he didn't actually need to create a cure. What if someone had already drunk his blood and got completely cured because of it? Would that be enough to improve her odds? When they hear that, Ki-do and Sujin almost freak out, since they'd agreed with Jincheol not to tell anyone. Taehoon steps up next to the kid and asks what he means by that, and that's when Yeon tells them everything. He says he was bitten by an infected once, and after that he watched the person go back to normal right in front of him, and the only symptoms they had after turning back were some chills and dehydration. Other than that, no health issues. Trying to keep things under control, Ki-do tells Sujin he noticed the MC avoided saying she was the one who bit him, so they should just act like they don't know that part of the story. Yeon wraps it up by saying that if his blood can work like some kind of vaccine, then maybe more people can be cured without needing a ton of research. Se-yoon thinks about what she just heard and says that after everything he's done for them, she doesn't doubt him. But as a doctor, she can't just accept it out of nowhere. She needs to see it with her own eyes. Someone being cured by his blood. That would be the perfect experiment. Yuan looks confused when she says experiment, but she takes off her glasses and tells him to think of it more like a favor she's asking. Taehoon starts breaking out in a cold sweat. He can already tell the doctor is planning something weird. Then she says that if the kid agrees, she can find a test subject herself to try it on. But she stops mid-sentence and says, actually, they've had a test subject ready for a long time. The scene cuts, and we see that behind the hotel, in a dark, freezing room, there's an infected woman tied up, like she's been there for a while. The doctor tells the group there's an infected person being kept in that building, and Yuan is completely shocked. Se-yoon explains she hasn't been there that long. They locked her in there 3 days ago. At first, they thought it was just the flu, but then her symptoms got worse and she started attacking people. Taehoon managed to lure her into that basement, and with a lot of effort, keep her trapped inside. Ki-do asks if she'd been bitten, but the doctor says she didn't have any kind of external wound. Sujin asks if it's possible for infection symptoms to take that long to show up, and Ki-do says it's the first time he's heard of that, but it probably depends on the person. Yuan asks if she wants him to give the woman his blood and see if it can cure her. Seo-yoon says that's exactly it, and if she gets cured, he won't just be immune to the virus, he'd basically be the cure for all of this, like a walking vaccine. Ki-do asks if that wouldn't be super dangerous. Even if Yuan didn't get attacked by the infected woman, they still can't really say what other risks there are if he gets bitten by someone infected. But the doctor says she's not going to ask Yuan to get bitten, and she opens one of the drawers in her office and pulls out a syringe. She says he just needs to inject a little of his blood into her, and it'll be way simpler. Even so, he's the only one who can do it, since nobody else can get close to the infected. Ki-do tries again to warn his friend that this could be dangerous, but Yuan says he's doing it anyway. If there's even a chance he can save her, then he's going to try. While all that's happening, outside, Ma Young-ho and the other guard talk about Taehoon, saying they were worried, but he managed to make it back safely. The kid doesn't seem to be paying attention to what the guard is saying, and the guard scolds him for it, saying he's a pain to talk to. But Ma Young-ho ignores him. Instead, he keeps staring at Yuan's car with a weird look, like he's got something bad in mind. Either way, the scene cuts back to the hotel. Taehoon says that if the MC isn't comfortable with this, he doesn't have to force himself. But the kid says Taehoon doesn't need to worry, because it won't be that hard for him, and he was the one who volunteered in the first place. Taehoon points to a little girl sitting there in the hotel, and says the infected person in that room is the girl's mother. She lost her dad during an attack, and she barely managed to escape with her mom. But the woman ended up turning infected a few days later. Luckily, nobody else got bitten when it happened, but Taehoon came really close to shooting the woman for everyone's safety in the shelter. He only stopped because the little girl started crying and begging him not to, and he couldn't ignore her. Taehoon did everything he could to lock the woman in the basement and keep anyone else from getting near her. But the worst part is that, this whole time they've been lying to the kid, telling her her mom would get better soon. Sujin is about to cry, hearing the story, but Yuan realizes he can't mess this up, not even a little. He looks at the little girl and instantly remembers his niece smiling at him. He clenches his fists and tells Taehoon they won't have to lie anymore, because now they finally have some hope. One of the guards shows up and tells Taehoon it's almost time for the shift change, and the captain says he'll be there soon. He tells the MC's group he set up 2 rooms for them, which makes Ki-do happy since he hasn't slept in a real bed in a long time. Then Taehoon thanks Yuan for the help and wishes him good night before heading out for his night watch. Sujin says he's an amazing person, and you can really feel how everyone there depends on him to survive. Yuan says watching him is like watching a real leader in action. Ki-do agrees, but says something about that place feels off. He asks if the MC noticed too it's not a military base, but everyone there is armed with rifles. The reporter thinks it's weird they have barricades and even shift changes, saying they seem way too organized. But then Ma Young-ho shows up behind him and says that's because Captain Taehoon was a soldier before the crisis happened. Ki-do jumps and asks what he means, and the kid explains Taehoon used to lead the Army's 13th Division, and the rifles belong to his unit. Now they finally get why everyone calls Taehoon Captain. Ma Young-ho says they can suspect whatever they want, but they should be careful, because everyone there follows the captain without even questioning him. Yuan asks what happened to his unit if he was a soldier. Why did he leave and come live there with them? But the kid looks at the MC and says it's because Taehoon hadn't been a soldier for a long time. From the start, the captain had deserted his unit, and he was known as a deserter officer. Ma Young-ho doesn't know why he did it, but that's the truth he heard straight from the captain's own mouth. Sujin asks if he has any intention of going back to the army, but the young guy just says that's something they need to ask him directly. Then he heads upstairs, saying that honestly, nobody who lives there even cares to know. Sujin and Ki-do start thinking the whole thing is really suspicious, and they ask Yuan if he can actually trust those people. For a second, the MC looks lost in thought, but when he looks again at the little girl waiting for her mom to come back to her, he makes up his mind. He says everyone there has their own story, but right now none of that matters. He's just focused on doing the right thing, since that's all he can do for them. Outside, there's an armed soldier who looks like he's guarding the place. From his ID, his name is Jang, and his eyes look kind of distant, like he's lost in his own memories. His whole squad got wiped out by that horrible infection, and he still remembers his men's last moments, and what they ended up turning into. Going back to those memories just fills him with rage. That's when a woman wearing glasses walks up to him and asks why he's guarding the place all by himself. The soldier quickly realizes he's talking to the doctor. She's clearly worried about him. He looks like he's pushing himself way too hard. Jang says he's not the only one pushing themselves in there, and he's willing to do whatever he can. But the doctor gets straight to the point. She thinks he's still having nightmares. Jang says he's used to them by now. It's life punishing him for the sins he's committed. The doctor feels for him and decides to hold his hand. She tells him he shouldn't be so hard on himself, because everyone in there is counting on him. He's the captain. Feeling a little lighter, he admits there's still a reason for him to stay alive. What they don't realize is, they're being watched by a very quiet, discreet young guy. The next day, the sky is gray and it's pouring. The protagonist's group is having breakfast, relieved to finally be safe. Staying outside any longer could have been a disaster. Yihuan isn't really paying attention. He's still trying to get a reply from his sister. Since the rain is so heavy, they have to wait for the weather to clear up before going back outside. The soldier joins them in the cafeteria and asks if everyone slept okay. The protagonist is the first to thank him. Thanks to the soldier, he managed to rest for the first time in a long time. The soldier says he's grateful too. They owe the protagonist a lot, and he doesn't even know how to repay him. He's also worried about Yihuan, because leaving in these conditions could be dangerous. But the protagonist is in a huge hurry. He doesn't have time to waste. He's going to keep his promise. It's time for them to take him down to the basement where the zombie is being kept. That makes the soldier a bit uneasy, but he agrees. The kid is taken underground. Behind those doors is what he's looking for. And there's no light down there, so he needs to bring a flashlight. The doctor also gives him a syringe with a sample of the protagonist's blood. He just has to drip it into the zombie's mouth. The girl is ready to go in. She tells everyone to step back, because it could be dangerous. The soldier finds it weird how calm the protagonist's friend is, like they've done this a bunch of times. Truth is, helping people is something Yihuan does all the time. He finally finds what he was looking for, a woman who's been turned. The boy asks her to wait just a little longer. While thinking about his dear sister, the people close to the protagonist are really anxious about everything that's happening. The soldier wants to know if the kid is actually immune, so he asks Kim. But the poor guy is so used to all this that he ends up spacing out. Truth is, he's worried too. The protagonist might act super confident, but he's actually really fragile. He throws himself into helping others without thinking twice, sometimes in a reckless way. And when he can't help someone, he falls apart. If he can't save this woman, he's going to be crushed. Now the doctor is worried too, thinking she might have asked the impossible. While they're talking, the doors finally open. It's the protagonist and he needs the doctor's help now. That makes her panic, thinking the kid got hurt. But the person inside says her mouth is really dry. After she's properly treated, she starts getting medical care. The woman seems to have a fever, and she realizes she caused a lot of trouble for everyone. At least, she didn't attack anyone thanks to what the soldier did. Still recovering, she apologizes for what happened. But the doctor says there's no need, because she blames herself for not being able to treat the infection. She feels completely useless, since all she can do now is rely on other people. The soldier walks up and puts a hand on her shoulder, telling her the doctor has already done more than enough. If she hadn't been there, they never would have convinced the protagonist she saved everyone. And finally, the doctor looks a little more cheerful. After doing all that, our main guy went outside. It was still raining, but he said he needed to get some fresh air. Sujin went to meet up with him to see what he was doing. He quickly noticed Sujin had changed clothes. The girl got some new stuff at the shelter. Yihuan started venting to her, thinking none of this was going to work out. Sujin told him not to think like that, because she was saved by him too, which makes him humanity's biggest hope. She said the others still don't know what he did. They think the infection just went away on its own, but soon they're going to have to tell the truth. With that in mind, Sujin has an interesting proposal, thinking about everyone's safety. With a few more people there, the soldier and the doctor, the plan is to keep it a secret. Sujin believes that's the safest thing to do. The soldier didn't really like it, because the idea of a cure through the protagonist could give a lot of people hope. But that's exactly what worries Sujin. Once people find out his blood is the cure, it could cause conflicts, everyone trying to take control of him. The doctor and the soldier hadn't thought about it that way. They've all lost loved ones, and they'd be willing to do anything to save them, even if it puts other people at risk. Kim quickly realized that's basically the perfect recipe for chaos. Our protagonist would get hunted down like some miracle cure. Yuan can fight zombies pretty well, but against armed humans, it won't be so easy. Humanity might be the biggest danger. None of them had really considered that. Sujin was seriously sharp for thinking of that. That's why she's being so careful, so she doesn't put the protagonist's life at risk. Then she asked if the soldier is really capable of protecting their boy and keeping him safe. For a brief moment, the soldier went completely silent. Sujin doesn't doubt his ability, but she wanted to make it clear they need to be careful. Because one thing is true, our protagonist is humanity's hope. Kim quickly realized that's something everyone's worried about. When they find out what the protagonist can do with his blood, he'll be used like a lab rat. Sure, he has superpowers, but ever since gunpowder was invented, martial arts basically turned into a dance. Sujin really thought through every detail. The doctor ended up agreeing with her. She trusts everyone in that room, but she can't say the same about strangers. A lot of danger could come from this, so she agreed to keep it secret. Our protagonist wants to know if they have enough medicine. The doctor said things are bad, they got some meds from a nearby clinic, but it's not enough. Before continuing his journey, our protagonist wants to help as much as he can. Outside, he was handed a list of everything that could be useful. The doctor is really worried, because the city's been taken over by the infected. Our boy knows that, but he's doing it to help. It's the best he can do. And besides, they're prepared, and they've got the best company possible, the protagonist. The kid, the same one who was spying on the captain's conversation the other day, said the weapons are ready, and the captain told him he didn't need to push himself so hard, because going into the city could be really dangerous, but he still wants to help anyway. The captain was really happy to see that fighting spirit. Now it's time for them to hit the road. The doctor wished everyone a safe trip. She keeps exchanging looks with the captain. There's definitely something going on with those two. Finally, the car left the hideout. Sujin told the doctor not to worry, because the protagonist knows what he's doing. Taking the chance, Sujin asked how long she and the captain have been dating, which made the doctor super embarrassed. Inside the car, they're also grilling the captain about whether he's dating the doctor. Kim said it was kinda obvious, just look at the two of them. The captain said he sees the doctor as someone he trusts. Nothing more than that. But judging by Kim's face, he's not buying it. He even made a pretty solid point. When a man and a woman trust each other that much, certain things are bound to happen. It's totally natural. That mysterious kid is still in the car, definitely hiding something. The rain is still coming down hard, but they managed to reach the place the doctor pointed them to. That area seems really quiet, but they need to be careful. Time to check inside, and everything's going way too smoothly. The hospital is completely abandoned, and they've already started gathering some medicine. Kim told them to grab anything that looks useful, and the doctor will say what actually matters. That quiet kid ended up finding something interesting. Inside a drawer, he found a padlock with the key still in it. The captain asked if he'd found anything. All worked up, the kid slammed the drawer shut and said no, hiding the fact that he'd stolen that padlock. Looks like that opened the door to some really nasty thoughts he's trying hard to keep buried. The group keeps searching through the abandoned hospital. Kim is pretty exhausted, but relieved because there's only one floor left. And the captain's happy because they found a lot of useful stuff. They reach a fork in the way. The group will have to split up, and they need to be careful. Kim is counting on the protagonist to protect him, and asks that if anything happens, our guy should come help him immediately. That weird kid ends up alone. Still searching, Kim thinks there's probably nothing left, but the soldier brings over a box so they can gather the last few items. He found some snacks, and he's excited to bring them back to the kids. Kim starts talking with the captain, and finds out he used to be an army soldier. That comment makes the whole room go dead quiet. Seems like the captain doesn't like talking about it, and he can tell the topic made his buddy uncomfortable. Kim is actually really curious and wants to know what happened before all this. That makes the captain drift back into his memories and let out a deep sigh. Answering isn't hard, but he doesn't know if he should. He had to kill his own men, and he feels insanely guilty about it, like he can't forgive himself. What happened that day was really fast. They got called in for an urgent mission. Some of the captain's men started getting sick and acting weird, then they attacked their own teammates. Everything spiraled out of control, and there was nothing else he could do. The captain was the only one left, rifle in hand. He did what he had to do to survive. He escaped alone, took some weapons and ammo, and eventually found a shelter. Even though he's not in the army anymore, he feels like he should be punished for what he did. But a lot has happened, and people depend on him now. Finally, the reporter understands what happened, realizing how heavy that man's guilt is along with his sense of responsibility. That's why he and the protagonist get along so well. They've got really similar values. Kim apologizes for asking something so sensitive, saying it's a habit from his old job. Honestly, Kim gets why everyone calls that man Captain. But after hearing all that, he starts thinking about that weird kid again. Meanwhile, the protagonist keeps checking another area, but there isn't much worth collecting. He runs into the weird kid and tells him that. The weird kid has questions. He thinks the protagonist is the one who healed that woman. That makes our guy really uncomfortable. So he has to lie, saying he doesn't have any healing ability and that it was the doctor. Even so, the weird kid still believes the protagonist healed her, and that he's hiding the truth so people won't panic. Yihuan didn't expect the kid to be that sharp, and says there's a reason they have to keep it secret. The weird kid thinks the captain is behind the lie, since he makes the rules around there, and everyone has to follow them. That's just what they do. Full of hate, the weird kid decides to point his gun at the protagonist, because he's sick of having to do this kind of thing. A shot goes off, which freaks the captain and the journalist out. They think something might have happened to the protagonist. They run toward the sound and find the weird kid. With an even creepier smile, he shuts the door between them. That makes the captain seriously worried. On the other side, the weird kid uses the padlock he found. He plans to run some experiments on our protagonist. to figure out what he really is. Back at the hideout, some men are talking. If it keeps raining like this, the zombies won't be able to reach them. They just need to keep watch until everyone gets back. That's when one of them notices his rifle is out of ammo. That puts their whole security job at risk, because they didn't check their gear. They come to the conclusion that the weird kid might have messed with it. At the city hospital, the captain tells the weird kid to open the gate already. But the weird kid is armed and ready to use his bullets, so he tells everyone else to stay quiet. As for our protagonist, there wasn't any other choice, he had to shoot. Kim panics, yelling if that asshole even understands what he's done. He just destroyed humanity's last hope. To the weird kid, that's perfect, because he likes the world the way it is now. The captain and the journalist can't even believe this is real, and the weird kid actually thinks the main guy is really dead. But little by little, our guy's body started to move, and this evil-looking glow showed up in one of his eyes. The captain keeps smashing the bars with his rifle, hoping he can get to the other side. Kim tells him to stop, better to stay calm and think of something. The captain feels super guilty. He should have realized that weird big kid was trouble, and because of that, the protagonist got screwed. But the journalist says that's not true. No one could have guessed something like this would happen. The fact that all the guns were unloaded just proves it was all planned. Even the keys were left inside the car, giving the weird kid the perfect chance. The captain is really worried, thinking about what might happen to the others. That's why they need to stay calm, the journalist says. Looks like he has a sudden realization and notices something really interesting. Kim completely forgot he had another gun. Not even the captain expected that. Kim says he'll explain later. Right now it's time to break that door, and he aims at the padlock. That makes the captain nervous, because the bullet could ricochet and come back at them. That's when they see someone on the other side, our protagonist. But he looks kind of different. Our guy is remembering the moments right before the shot. Totally furious, he just breaks the padlock with his hand. After freeing his companions, he changes direction. They can't tell where he's going, but they want to follow him no matter what. Inside the camp, some of the background people are already dead. The weird kid is having a great time, since none of his victims are going to be able to escape. The doctor is desperate, wanting to know why he's doing this. The weird kid says he's making new rules, because he's the leader now. That's when the doctor asks what he did to the captain. That seems to make the weirdo furious. Since she only thinks about that soldier, he punches her in the face, which makes the women really worried. This weird kid has a massive ego problem. He wants to know why everyone cares about the captain. He thinks he's way better than him, and still, nobody chose to follow him. He should have shot him, like he did to our protagonist. When Sujin hears that, she completely freaks out. The weird kid already knows he can cure zombies, and he thinks nobody's ever going to see our protagonist again. And judging by the glow in our protagonist's eyes, he doesn't look very happy. Everything he sees is tinted red. A bunch of emotions are taking over his mind, and it feels kind of numb. He's just going wherever his body wants to go. And on top of that, he's starving, feels like he could pass out any second. Inside the hideout, the weird kid is still threatening everyone. He tries to justify it, saying he tried to like the captain, but he just couldn't. The doctor quickly realizes the kid is a psycho and says the captain always trusted him, since he was the only one close to his age, and the captain was always worried about the guy's family, who's missing, like everyone else's. But those words mean nothing to the weird kid. Actually, that's exactly why he hates the captain. He felt looked down on, while the captain kept being adored by everyone. The women realize that's a ridiculously stupid reason to go crazy, and the weirdo can tell what they're thinking. Sujin takes the chance to say she's standing in front of a pathetic man. Furious, the weirdo grabs her by her clothes, throwing out a bunch of threats. Pointing the gun at her, he says she has no idea what kind of danger she's in. It's time they learn to obey him. Sujin gets even more pissed, saying she's a colonel's daughter and would never be scared of some mediocre nobody like him. She already died once, and that's not something that terrifies her. Honestly, she'd rather die again than have to obey someone as mediocre as him. That gives the weirdo the nerve. He's ready to end her life, ready to clear his conscience with these people's blood. Until a strange noise echoes through the place. Our protagonist just walked into the room, and he does not look happy. That makes the weird kid completely terrified. Sujin immediately realizes the protagonist has arrived. The weird kid's hands are shaking. This shouldn't be possible, not at all. And the way the protagonist looks at him basically scared the crap out of him. Thinking he had the upper hand because he had a gun, that weirdo threatened our boy. But then the women in that hideout grabbed him, hoping to disarm him. The weirdo realized our protagonist had gotten way too close, then got smashed in the face, losing a few teeth. The hit was so brutal that if he had wings, he would have gone flying. Now his face is busted up, and he doesn't have a weapon anymore. Sujin is terrified about what just happened, especially of the protagonist, who tells everyone to get out of there right now. None of them want to find out what'll happen if they don't listen. The weird kid can't even get up. Our protagonist is calmer now, but there's only one thing on his mind: an uncontrollable hunger. Back at the hospital, Kim and the captain think our protagonist has already made it to the shelter. They couldn't go that way either, because the place is surrounded by zombies. So they're basically stuck, with nothing to do but wait. The captain asks the journalist why the weird kid ended up like that. He's not very social, sure, but he never caused trouble before. Kim says that in situations like this, after the zombies show up, people start showing their true nature. You can't really say who someone really is. Even people who trust them a lot might not know what they're hiding in the shadows. A bunch of zombies are closing in on their shelter. Realizing he's about to die, the weird kid begs to live a little longer. He says he did all that because he was stressed, and that he's not a bad person. Life is hell, they don't know how long they'll survive, or if they'll starve to death, and people tend to lose it under that kind of pressure. Then the weird kid notices a piece of wood near his hand. After a quick look, he grabs it and starts getting up. Without thinking twice, he attacks our protagonist. That would have been a dangerous hit for a normal person. Right after that, the weirdo drops the stick and goes for the gun. He finally manages to grab it with both hands. Our protagonist is furious, and the kid heads outside. But the protagonist is already right behind him. The weirdo says life is way too easy for Yiwon, since he isn't hunted by the infected. Even after the outbreak, the world is still unfair, and he hates it. Talented people always get noticed, while guys like him keep getting ignored. For God's sake, this dude is such a whiny loser. And he fires at our boy again. The noise scares the women inside. Yiwon staggers a bit from the impact. Now the weird kid is feeling super confident, so he walks up to him to share a secret. He likes how things are now this world full of infected people, because now nobody expects anything from him, and that feels amazing. No social pressure about how much he should earn, or what car he drives. If the world's ruined, that's not his problem. And honestly, even before the infected, the world was already full of zombies, nothing really changed. Our boy can barely even process those words in his current state. There's only one thought he can't shake. He's starving, almost losing his mind. Once again, the weirdo points his gun at the protagonist, not realizing he's getting completely surrounded by the infected. Then he finally looks back and sees he's about to be wiped out. Since he still has a gun, he tries to fight them off, but he ends up getting bitten by one of them. In his final moments, he still has the nerve to ask for help. While his body is being torn apart, our protagonist watches closely. Until, finally, Yiwon gives in to the urge too, joining his wandering buddies for that wonderful snack. Sujin, watching from a window, sees everything. The infected completely devour that asshole. The doctor asks if anything happened outside, but it was so horrifying to watch that Sujin is still totally silent, frozen in panic. Since she has to answer, she lies and says everything's fine. She immediately shuts the window so nobody sees what happened, and says they should go look for the others, who must be worried. At last, the rain stops. Sujin and the others inspect the shelter. Outside, there are still a bunch of infected, and our protagonist is among them. Finally, it had stopped. Back at the hospital, the rain has stopped there too, and the journalist is worried about the others. The captain stands up right away. He knows he can't just sit there doing nothing. It's his fault things ended up like this. So it's time to do something too. Kim is worried about that kind of behavior, because they don't have any weapons, and going outside could be dangerous. But the captain said it's just as dangerous to stay there doing nothing. The difference is, if they manage to pull it off outside, they'll save some lives. Then the mysterious guy said there's no need for that. Kim got really scared and said that guy almost killed someone. It's our protagonist, saying there's a car outside waiting for them. They want to know how the kid is okay. Yiwon just apologized for taking so long. Kim wants to know what happened, because he's sure his friend got shot. Our protagonist gives a dumb explanation like the shot missed, but he ended up passing out, and they don't need to worry about anything else. The captain asked about the people who were in the shelter. Yiwon went quiet for a moment, and said they need to go back there first. The doctor looks really sad, and so do the others. They're holding a funeral for the people who died. That security guard was an amazing driver, and the other guy was a great delivery worker. He took really good care of the elderly. They were kind people, and now they're gone. None of them were together for that long, but they were fighting to survive in that place. They were comrades. They'll be missed by everyone. At night, they handed our kid an envelope. It proves that his blood can cure the infected. The doctor did that so the protagonist would have an easier time explaining his condition, but she admitted they need to be careful when they talk about it. Our kid agrees. The captain still has a lot of questions. Apparently, Yiwon doesn't remember going back to the shelter alone, but he's sure he did it on foot. His memories are just really messy, like it was a dream. The captain thinks it's related to his condition. The doctor said it could have been the gunshot putting him into shock. In the end, that asshole got attacked by the infected, without leaving a trace behind. Sujin goes totally quiet when she hears that, but she knows what really happened. Now the doctor can't stop thinking about what she did, and why he's acting so weird. He became a completely different person. Kim said there are always people like that. He's met plenty selfish people, who can only think about themselves. And honestly, the world is full of people more dangerous than the infected. That really worries the captain. And since the protagonist wants to go to Yangyang City, the roads are blocked, and knowing the trip will be rough, the captain recommended he avoid running into soldiers. Kim thought that advice was weird, because he figured the military could protect them. But the captain said to watch out for small groups. Just because they're wearing uniforms doesn't mean they're not dangerous. There are deserters out there, people abandoning the army. Soldiers from that area survived too, but they chose a different path. The captain can't really give details. But one thing he's sure about, they're dangerous. Yiwan doesn't know if he'd even run into them, since all that happened weeks ago. And the captain really hopes it never happens, but he's still worried. Because that night, they went to Yangyang City. In his own flashback, the captain had to run a lot. He's so desperate he's doing everything he can to keep it together. The first thing he thought of was reporting everything to the operations center, but then he ran into some of his comrades. Those guys seemed way too calm. They didn't expect anyone from the second company to still be alive. And they were already holding a civilian at gunpoint. The captain was furious about what was happening. Some of the soldiers looked embarrassed, and the captain asked again what they thought they were doing. That's when one of them said he was being too loud and pointed his gun at the captain. He said the captain wasn't in charge here. The captain realized Minjun had lost it. They weren't supposed to point guns at civilians, even in a situation like that. And the psycho accused the captain of getting his own men killed, hitting him right where it hurt. He said the captain wasn't some noble guy, actually. He was the craziest one of all. Stealing a car to escape is the right move. Better than killing your own subordinates. That's when they noticed something else coming. A bunch of infected were closing in. They were former soldiers from that division. That's the command unit, meaning the headquarters has already been overrun too. Minjun smacked the captain with the butt of his gun, and the guy ended up dropping to the ground. They're wasting way too much time, it's time to grab the car and get out of there. Minjun rushed his soldiers, but one of them still hadn't gotten into the car. He got worried about that civilian, because if they left him behind, he'd die. Minjun snapped at the rookie, since he apparently has to teach him how to do everything, and then he immediately killed the civilian they were leaving behind. The captain could barely believe what he'd just seen. That's how that lunatic solves problems. Now the rookie needs to get in the car while he's still being taught. The other soldier inside the vehicle asked if they were just going to leave the captain there. Minjun said he left him alive for a reason. He's going to be food for the infected. After a while, the captain managed to get back on his feet, but he's surrounded by the infected, and they're really dangerous. It's time for him to move if he wants to stay alive, but his body is frozen with fear. To this day, he hates going back to those memories. That kind of disgusting people headed to the city of Yangyang. With the roads blocked, it shouldn't be easy to get there by car, but it's possible those men kept traveling anyway. Yiwan thanked the captain for telling him all of this, but he can't waste any more time. He wants to find his family as soon as possible, because it might already be too late. After that talk, the captain went outside to look at the stars. Knowing he was alone, the doctor went over to him because she was worried. The two of them chat casually about everyday stuff. The captain's just relieved everyone's okay, and the doctor is clearly worried about him, telling him he shouldn't be so hard on himself. People can hide some seriously messed up things about themselves, you can't predict that. Instead of replaying what hurts, they should focus on the good memories. While hugging her, the captain realizes she's right. Our protagonist watches all of this from a little distance away, and he looks kind of sad. Yuan still remembers some of what happened. He's hiding part of who he is, something people don't know about him. But he doesn't know how long he'll be able to keep doing that. The next day, everything's ready. The captain says they should take a weapon, but our protagonist doesn't think it's necessary. The weapons are better off staying there, to protect those people. The captain hands him a map with the best route to the city. The protagonist's team helped him a lot, and he wants to repay them the best way he can, hoping the kid finds his family safely. Yihuan wishes the same for them, that they stay safe. The doctor tells Sujin she packed some medicine in her bag. From the window, the kid sees someone trying to say goodbye. It's that cute little child, and it makes him think of his own sister. Yihuan waves back too, smiling. Everyone's really grateful for the people they met there. Now it's time to hit the road. The car and the motorcycle head toward the next city. The doctor asks if the captain will be okay with this. If he went with them, he might run into survivors from his unit. But he promises he's not going anywhere, which makes the doctor really happy. Holding her hand, he says he's found his home. Back on the road, the car follows the protagonist's bike. They have to check the map constantly to make sure they're on track. At night, they have to rest in an abandoned house. But the next day, they get moving again. They stop before entering a long tunnel. On the other side is the city, thanks to the captain's map. The trip was pretty easy. Kim thinks there's no other choice. They have to go through that tunnel. The kid agrees and tells them to follow carefully. But what they don't know is that, inside an abandoned vehicle nearby, someone is watching everything. The protagonist's group keeps moving forward. Yuan is super anxious, hoping to find his family. But then he has to slam on the brakes. He's shocked to see the path is completely blocked by a bunch of vehicles. A soldier starts stepping out of one of them. It's been a while, but the man says he finally found something interesting. The protagonist's group gets tense as the guy approaches. And the soldier is happy to have found a group that isn't just a bunch of losers. Yuan immediately remembers the captain's advice. Sujin is worried about this stranger. The tunnel was blocked on purpose. The kid asks if they planned this, because he wants to keep traveling. The soldier gives this insanely evil grin, points at the blockade, and suggests the protagonist cross through alone. Our guy started hearing a noise coming from the tunnel. A huge truck was heading straight toward them. It was coming in like it had no driver, totally out of control. But instead of hitting them, it blocked the exit too. Kim realized there was basically nothing they could do in that situation. The soldiers said they still didn't get it. Life must have been way too easy for them. That group had just been captured. Other soldiers were already in position with their rifles ready. Our guy was completely surrounded. The cocky soldier said he was going to get straight to the point. Sujin and the others were taken prisoner. They weren't in any position to complain. But one of those creeps said he was going to take real good care of Sujin. He'd show her just how bad things could get the next day. Kim was furious if they weren't armed. They'd find out how strong the protagonist really is. Sujin was wondering if those were the deserters the captain had talked about. Putting the clues together, Kim thought, yeah, because they had a badge from the same division. Yiwan realized they were going to be stuck there overnight. So it was time to figure out a way to escape. Problem is, the car and the bike were confiscated, and without food, they wouldn't make it very far. Sujin was worried they might know about the protagonist, because she saw a radio there they could have heard the last transmission. Kim said they should keep quiet so nobody finds out about the protagonist's condition. That's when a mysterious guy decided to jump into the conversation, freaking everyone out. That man was interested in the protagonist's secret. Kim realized he'd messed everything up, and our guy asked who the man was. He said his name was Kim, and he'd been captured 5 days ago, just like them. The journalist said those men were hunting people. That middle-aged bald guy had only been kept alive this long because he was useful. He revealed he was a doctor. That's why the soldiers were still keeping him there. Whenever they need him, they take him out of the cell, then throw him back in once it's handled. Kim said this was worse than being a prisoner of war. The bald guy asked again about the protagonist's condition, about him not getting bitten by the infected. But the doctor said he wasn't going to leak that, he just wanted to confirm something. Whether our guy is completely immune to the virus. Because if that's true, then he's one of the people responsible for what happened. The soldiers were really happy with what they'd seized. They were expecting just basic supplies, but this was like striking gold. But not all of them were happy. And that asshole leader called out the newbie. He told him to stop feeling guilty about what happened, saying he could have the girl before anyone else. A golden opportunity in this ruined world. The other degenerates said the recruit should be grateful. As for the other guys, who looked useless, they should be fed to the zombies. Time to feed the creature again. Sujin asked if the doctor really said that if he was responsible for creating the infection, but he said no. He said he was part of the project, but he ditched the crazy guy running it pretty fast. Kim, the journalist, asked the doctor what he was talking about. So he started remembering what happened, an experiment that came out of the mind of a sick man. Dr. Shin is a famous infectious disease specialist, so being part of his project was a big deal. But the doctor quickly realized he was working on something horrible. The goal was to create a new humanity, free of all disease, with boosted reflexes, basically a plan to upgrade human physical ability. Kim said it sounded like some messed up cult stuff, but the doctor insisted that really was the project. And it makes sense, people would question it. Lots of researchers walked away because it was too dangerous. The experiments were done on people. Modified viruses were injected into patients who were basically dying, to see if they'd come back. Kim and Sujin quickly realized what he meant. There was zero ethics to it, and if the virus spread, it would be impossible to control. The main goal of the project was to create human zombies wouldn't attack someone like our protagonist. Back to the soldiers. They were shocked by how many meds there were. Super useful. Until that asshole found some blood samples. Back to the doctor. He was sure the virus had escaped. That was the most likely explanation. A danger everyone who quit the project had warned about. Sujin wanted to know how the protagonist was connected to all this. The doctor asked if he'd heard of the hospital in Incheon. Our guy immediately remembered what happened, because that was the day his life changed forever. It might look like a normal hospital from the outside, but that's where the experiments were happening. If the main guy is connected to that place, he might have gone through some kind of mutation. That made him furious, and he asked if the doctor wanted to meet his lab rat again. Even Kim got scared by how our boy was standing his ground. Yihuan is getting really angry, because thanks to that experiment, a lot of people died. People lost everything they had, and even the survivors are turning into monsters. He was so pissed off that he managed to break his restraints. He's ready to punish this doctor, who was involved in that research. The bald guy admits it's his fault, and that he's responsible for what happened, but he wants to understand the protagonist's immunity for the sake of the other survivors. Because it didn't happen just by luck, there has to be a logical explanation, and he's definitely this world's last hope. Kim asked if the doctor was suggesting the protagonist become a test subject, but what he's asking for is antibodies, so he can work on a vaccine. They could use that to convince the soldiers to let all of them live. Yiwan asked what happens if it fails, if his antibodies end up doing the opposite. Their conversation got interrupted by a door opening. A soldier with glasses showed up, and he's armed. The protagonist showed he's not in cuffs anymore, and the soldier said it could have been dangerous if it had been a different soldier there. After closing the door, he revealed he didn't come to hurt them. His superiors told him to get rid of those two, but he's not going to do it. The protagonist was shocked, and the recruit said he needs all of their help. Kim is really suspicious. The soldiers dragged them there, and now they're asking them for help? The recruit said he didn't have a choice, he had to follow orders. And he said that, just like them, he's also a prisoner of those people. The doctor told them to relax a little. Because this recruit really is different from the others, he's never acted violently, and he probably wants to escape that hell too. Kim still has a hard time believing him, since he could be plotting something. The recruit said they need to escape fast, because the next morning they're going to execute those two. Kim can't even believe he's being treated like this, and the doctor already knows what's going to happen. Those two are going to be used as food for the infected woman in the building. She's the doctor's wife. It looks like there's a flashback, and a badly injured man said he did what he was told, but for those soldiers, that's not enough. The worst one said he's really bored. There's nothing to do out in those mountains, until something interesting finally decided to show up. Unlike the doctor, that man isn't useful, so he should blame himself. The recruit with glasses asked if that wasn't going too far. His superior got pissed at being questioned. And the recruit kept going. He knows everyone needs to survive, but killing for fun is a whole different thing. Doing that is basically the same as becoming a zombie too. The asshole said he's way too soft. Then he grabbed him by the face and said he's going to teach him a lesson. To survive in a world of monsters, they need to become monsters too. Become worse than them, so they won't be afraid of anything. The asshole asked what his men were waiting for. It was time to feed the zombie. That poor guy got thrown toward the infected woman. He couldn't do anything to survive. The protagonist can't believe they do that for fun. Kim realized those soldiers are seriously insane, and the recruit agreed they've got zero moral limits. Sujin asked the doctor if all of that was true. He confirmed it. His infected wife is being held hostage. They feed her prisoners, like it's some kind of game. Yuan wanted to know what kind of help the recruit was asking for. The area is surrounded by mountains, so escaping on foot is basically impossible. But the soldiers are careless, they don't even hide the car key, and the recruit is going to grab it. The next morning, he'll take down a few guys and hand the car key to the protagonist. Sujin said that's way too risky, and asked how he's supposed to beat 3 armed men. The recruit said he only needs to take down one of them. Their crazy leader, once he's down, the others won't do anything. Yuan asked why he's going this far. He could run away alone, it'd be way easier. The recruit said it's the right thing to do. Those words really got to the protagonist. Sujin said that doesn't change the fact it's super dangerous, it'd be better to escape while everyone's asleep. The recruit said they were gonna hear the sound of the car. Their conversation got interrupted by someone else. It was the leader of the crazies, coming over to see what was going on. So he told the new prisoners they've got something to do now. The asshole told them to hurry up already. Then he noticed our protagonist wasn't handcuffed anymore. What a great coincidence, he said, and told the recruit to do the same for the others too, since it'd be easier to move around like that. The prisoners were taken to another cell with mattresses, and the asshole said they could ask for whatever they needed. Sujin asked why he was acting like this now, and the thug said he's not a bad person. He was just being careful, since he'd be alone with the prisoners, and having a bunch of people around could make them uncomfortable. Nervous as hell, the recruit left. The thug said he needs to teach that newbie everything. Not trusting him, Kim told the soldier to get to the point already. Since there are no witnesses, he can stop messing around. The soldier realized he was dealing with smart people. Apparently, the zombies didn't bite one of the people there. Back at the captain's shelter, the woman who'd been cured is feeling fine. The doctor is doing everything she can to keep her healthy, but that only happened because of the protagonist. The woman wanted to thank him, but didn't get the chance. Her daughter ended up coming into the office too, to show the drawing she'd just made. They left that appointment really happy. As they walk down the halls, the doctor watches closely. Then the captain decided to come into her office as well, asking if something was worrying her. Truth is, she's been thinking about the protagonist's safety and his team. She thinks she might have made a huge mistake, because that letter she wrote might have fallen into the wrong hands, and that could put all of them in danger. The captain doesn't think that'll happen, since the protagonist is really strong, and the doctor did what she had to do. That letter is going to help all of them. She really hoped things would turn out that way. Now our protagonist is super worked up, asking what that thug had said. He said he'd been going through the stuff they'd taken, and found some files. And in there was something really interesting. It said the infected don't attack one of those 3. And more than that, when the infected drink that blood, they go completely back to normal. Kim finally understood why they were being treated so well. Sujin wanted to know what the thug wanted. He said it's nothing crazy. He wants to help humanity's last hope, and get a few perks out of it too. Because he thinks the source of the cure will be worshipped like a god, and he wants to benefit a little from that reputation, promising he'd take really good care of them. Kim thinks it's all bullshit, just a threat to force them to cooperate. So he asks a question. Why did he tell the recruit to leave the room? And the thug said the reason is obvious. He doesn't want to split his reward with more people. That freaked everyone out. But our protagonist decided to jump into the negotiation too. He knows it's an empty promise. Once the guy finds out who's immune to the zombies, he'll just kill the other 2. And from the look on the soldier's face, that's exactly the truth. The protagonist said he's ditching his own people, and he's not making plans with someone like that. As they were about to leave the room, the asshole told them to think carefully. They'd talk again the next day. Until then, they should get some rest. Our protagonist is furious about all this, because he doesn't have time to waste. He needs to find his family as soon as possible. Stuck in that room, the protagonist's team is thinking about what to do. Sujin didn't expect the doctor's letter to be used like this. Our protagonist said they need to trust that recruit. He seems willing to help them. Kim's still kinda wary, but there's no other option. Yuan said they need to look for a chance to make a move. But he got interrupted by a voice outside, asking if everyone was okay. It was that friendly recruit. It was time for him to do perimeter security. The protagonist walked up to the door to talk to him. Kim thinks it might be a trap. The recruit said he'd like to come in, but the door was locked from the outside, and he apologized for everything that happened. He said he doesn't mean to betray them. Kim is now sure it's a trap. Our protagonist asked if the recruit heard anything else. He said the others plan to abandon this place the next day. They're already gathering up all the luggage, and they're planning to head to the capital. Kim and Sujin think they want to sell our protagonist to the government, even though they don't really know how things are out there right now. The recruit said the sergeant is a cruel guy, and he tosses aside anyone he thinks is useless. And he said they shouldn't trust him at all. Our protagonist said that's not going to happen, and he's already taken a stand. Since that degenerate wants to find the real immune person, his hands are kind of tied. The next day, there's a meeting. Our protagonist has some conditions if he's going to cooperate. The degenerate said that's ridiculous. They're acting arrogant just because they've been treated well. Yuan said he should say the same thing. He asked if the degenerate even knows how to use that blood sample. That medical opinion is proof, sure, but it doesn't explain how it's supposed to be used, or what precautions to take. So the soldier needs to be really careful, because he's the one in the vulnerable position. Kim can feel the tension in the place getting worse and worse. He doesn't know if this is the best strategy, because what the protagonist is doing right now is a huge bluff. It'll only work if that psycho buys this story. The degenerate said it'd be bad if something unplanned happened, so he wants to hear their conditions. Yuan said everyone's safety has to be guaranteed, and he's got a second condition too. If they're going to meet the government or the military, then they're the ones who decide their fate. That asshole wants to go back to the capital, but he has no idea that place is basically already a lost cause. The military left weeks ago. The city was handed over to the infected. Unlike them, hiding out in the mountains, our protagonist team actually has useful information. The asshole ended up agreeing, since those survivors don't want to go to hell either. Finally, the last condition. They're going to use a blood sample on the infected woman there. The asshole asked why he would cure someone in a situation like this. Yuan said someone like him would never understand, but he can confirm the blood really works. And honestly, that asshole was already thinking about how he could prove that info. Looks like they all came to an agreement. Yuan realized his plan worked. Now they've got a small advantage. All they can do now is trust the recruit. Inside a warehouse, the infected woman is being held captive. Our protagonist walks up to her. He's holding a sample of his own blood. The other soldiers want to know what's going on, because they thought they were leaving that day. The leader of the assholes told everyone to pay attention, because something really interesting is about to happen. At first, the infected woman got really worked up when he came closer. Before our guy went up to her, the asshole told him to wait. This was really important, and they needed everyone watching. Our guy saw they'd brought the doctor too. To the asshole, it mattered that the doctor saw what was about to happen. Once again, the doctor saw his infected wife. The asshole is a sadistic bastard, and wants to see what happens now. Our protagonist noticed a determined look. It's the young recruit, ready to act. Even so, Yuan is ready to cure that woman. He walks up to her again while everyone watches. The soldiers started getting nervous, thinking our protagonist was about to get attacked. Even the recruit was totally confused by it. But when he gets close, our guy doesn't get attacked. Yuan put one hand on the infected woman's shoulder. That shocked everyone. The recruit can't even believe it's real. Our protagonist is ready to give her the blood. She drinks what's in the vial. While the doctor is stunned, the crazy soldier is thrilled. A few seconds later, the infected woman collapses to the floor. The doctor rushes to her in a panic. He can't believe something is actually happening. Then the woman asked for some water, which filled her husband with hope. He asked for water to be given to her, because she's showing signs of severe dehydration. The soldiers were genuinely impressed by what they'd just seen. The leader of the crazies asked what his men were waiting for. The woman asked for water, so do it. They just didn't understand why that order wasn't given to the recruit. The psycho started smiling, and our protagonist tried to stop it. But those random guys got riddled with bullets. The sound of gunfire terrified everyone. Even the recruit dropped to the ground, not understanding what just happened. The psycho said he's not going to do anything to him actually. He said he'll keep him safe, as long as he agrees to obey him. Kim's shocked at how heartless that psycho is. He doesn't give a damn about his own men. Our main guy asked why he did that, since those guys were his teammates. The psycho said the answer's obvious. He needs to cut down the number of mouths to feed. They've got a long journey ahead. But he swore he'd still keep the promise he made to those people. The new recruit ended up pointing his gun at that asshole, saying he's a monster. He'd rather get bitten by zombies than follow someone like him. The asshole said the recruit was finally starting to learn. Trying to pressure the recruit, the psycho asked if he was really gonna act insubordinate. Said he could get shot for that. Being the manipulative bastard he is, the degenerate said he wasn't gonna do anything to him, because they need trust if they're gonna travel with those people. And he can't go in alone, he needs someone he trusts. And that person is the recruit. but the recruit doesn't trust that psycho anymore, and he's not gonna keep getting played. That degenerate only thinks about himself, other people's lives mean nothing to him. The degenerate said he should have killed the recruit on day 1, so he could go join his parents too. Completely furious, the recruit smashed him with the butt of his gun. The guy dropped and passed out on the floor. While kicking the asshole's body, the recruit said he never should have brought up his parents. He only stopped raging when the protagonist put a hand on him, saying he doesn't need to become the same kind of person as that monster. What they need to do now is take care of the doctor's wife. As for the degenerate, they're leaving him behind inside that shed. They organized all the supplies into the 2 cars. The doctor's wife is still recovering, but she's badly dehydrated. Their group just got bigger, and they also got another car they can hit the road now. Sujin told the protagonist again not to blame himself. Those soldiers didn't die because of him, and honestly, they weren't good people either. Not everything that happens is our boy's fault. Yihwan agrees, but he still beats himself up about it. Kim realized that being too kind can be a problem too, and now they've got 2 people like that. The recruit is still really shaken. Kim went to talk to him and learn his name. He says his name is Recruit. Kim said he gets how he's feeling, but this isn't the time to mourn. And it looks like the recruit agrees, because he wants to get out of there as soon as possible. If he doesn't have anywhere to go, he could join their group, and that's exactly what the recruit was about to ask, but a gunshot went straight through his back. His body hit the ground, and everyone freaked out. That thug still had a revolver. He'd woken up, and he was ready to make everyone's life even worse. He'd aimed for the head, but missed. Our protagonist realized that gun was his friend's. The thug said he was going to play dead until everyone left. They didn't even bother to recover the other blood sample. Kim realized the thug had drunk it. He did it so he wouldn't get bitten by zombies, but now he's realizing he's insanely hungry. His body is going through some crazy transformation. The protagonist told everyone to get out of there, because he's going to hold that guy off and keep things from getting worse. Kim is clearly worried about the protagonist doing this, but he realizes what he's planning by staying behind. Sujin, on the other hand, knows exactly what's coming, because she remembers the protagonist when he loses control, so she told them to listen to him and leave him behind. Right now, the priority is saving the recruit's life. But then someone said they're not running from that place. It's the degenerate, and he's ready to make everyone's life hell. Before he could use the revolver again, the protagonist smashed him in the face. His body flew back into the wall. The protagonist knows he's hungry. It's a pretty convenient situation, since Yuan is hungry too. The doctor looks back, he's sure he heard some shots. The protagonist's friends come up to him, saying they need help. He doesn't know what happened to the recruit, and there's no time to explain everything. The doctor said they need the medical kits, urgently. Looking back, Kim started wondering what our boy is going to do now. Even after taking that hit, the degenerate still looks totally fine. While he lit a cigarette, he said our main guy is stronger than he looks. Now it's time for them to have a little more fun. The asshole flicked his cigarette towards some flammable liquid, saying they're going to fight until only one of them is still standing. Yiwan charged at him again. But this time the degenerate came at him too, finding an opening and smashing our boy in the ribs. Their fight is brutal and pretty evenly matched. Fire started spreading inside that warehouse, which just makes everything even more dramatic, exactly how that psycho likes it. Those are the only people the zombies don't attack. They're the same kind, and they'll be worshipped like gods, and their value will shoot up if there's only one left. The degenerate attacks like an animal. The force of his hit actually cracks the ground, but our protagonist manages to strike back again, hurling the bastard away. That's basically the whole fight. One hits, the other takes it. All while the fire keeps getting worse and worse. Our protagonist's friends are freaking out now. Kim decides to grab one of the weapons. He's not just gonna stand there doing nothing. Sujin tries to tell him it's way too dangerous, because they don't know what they'll find in there. Then she remembers the protagonist told them to run and get out of that place. It's not just about escaping safely. He's trying to protect them from something even bigger. The danger he himself could become in a situation like this. The two mutants are trading blows in the middle of the flames, but it looks like the thug has the upper hand, since he's trained for this. Our protagonist tries to fight back as best he can, but his hits aren't doing as much anymore. And the thug just seems way more skilled. While he's crushing our boy, he thanks him for making him what he is now, then kicks him toward the growing fire. His body keeps transforming, even his hair has veins in it. The hungrier he gets, the stronger he gets too. Holding our boy in his hands, he realizes his hunger isn't aimed at him, but that can be fixed another way with those other people. That line makes our protagonist snap, and he manages to fight back again. Even after taking that hit, the thug is still totally fired up, while our boy is getting more and more exhausted. Losing it, the thug says he's gonna rip our boy to pieces. The fight just keeps getting more savage. Back with the doctor, he manages to give the recruit first aid. The shot didn't hit anything vital, so the kid's gonna be okay. They were lucky to have all those supplies. Without them, it would have been way harder. Then he asks if they got professional help to have all that stuff. Sujin says they ran into a doctor on the way there, and the doctor says thanks to that woman, they were able to save the kid's life. I just hope we won't need to use that on our protagonist too. Kim is still really worried. He knows they can't lose our boy. He's the only hope in this ruined world. So he decides again that he's going to help him, ignoring all the warnings. The fire is spreading fast, something definitely happened. Kim starts hearing a sound and tells everyone to be quiet. It sounds like a phone ringing. The journalist decides to follow it. Now he's inside an empty room, and he finds the phone that's been ringing. It's our protagonist's. But he doesn't answer in time. When he looks at the screen, he's completely shocked. Back in the burning warehouse, the thug says this is so frustrating. Our protagonist is weaker than he expected. They definitely aren't the same species, because our boy is way more useless than him. Since the fight isn't going to keep going, he's going to end our boy's existence. That's when the journalist shows up holding the phone, and says our boy's sister tried to call him, meaning she's still alive. Those words send this weird, mysterious surge of motivation through our protagonist's body. The thug doesn't even get what that means, and the conversation distracts him. That's when he realizes the protagonist is ready to keep fighting, and then he gets nailed by a devastating punch. The thug's body goes flying toward the flames. Yuan looks completely refreshed and locked in. Kim realizes the situation is kind of complicated. He remembers what Sujin said. The protagonist is trying to protect them from himself. Our boy seems like he's in control now. Kim goes over to help him stand up, but Kim being there makes the protagonist nervous, because he told everyone to run. Kim said they needed to get out of there first, or they could end up choking on the toxic smoke. Right then, a huge barrel got thrown straight at them. Kim shoved our boy out of the way so he wouldn't get hit, but he ended up taking it to the side of the head instead, and was completely knocked out. The punk came back out of the flames, his body burned up, ready to finish this fight, and he's feeling hungrier and hungrier. In a nearby city, some soldiers are out looking for supplies. They actually seem to be acting pretty ethically. They're hunting a specific group of deserters. According to the orders they got, this squad isn't like normal deserters. They've been blocking roads, capturing refugees, and committing all kinds of crimes. To these soldiers, that's the worst kind of behavior. They found out the deserters are hiding in the city of Yangyang. Then one of the men said, "There's a huge cloud of smoke rising from the mountain. It doesn't look like a normal fire, it looks like chemicals." That soldier realized it might have been caused by the deserters he's chasing. He told his men to check their gear right away and get ready to move, because they're going to investigate that fire. Sujin is carefully putting the recruit into the vehicle. He already woke up after the operation. The doctor is still really worried about our protagonist, who still hasn't made it out of there. Now they just have to wait and see what happens. Sujin is super confident she's sure our protagonist won't be left behind. She has no idea Kim is out cold, and our protagonist is completely worn out. But his enemy seems to be getting stronger and stronger, a full-on mutant. In the middle of the city, a woman looks out her window and thinks it's going to rain. Her partner says he'll go up to the roof to check. She notices the girl in that room looks kind of sad. She won't stop staring at her phone, like she's waiting for something. The woman says if the girl keeps missing her boyfriend like that, she's going to make herself sick. If she's that worried about Yuan, she should try calling him too. But the girl doesn't want to. She doesn't want to get in the way if he's trying to contact his sister, and she really wants to see him. So she decides she'll just be patient and keep waiting. Her parents are impressed by how mature she's being. They think nothing bad is going to happen. Not realizing our protagonist is getting beaten to a pulp, the punk walks up to him, wondering if our boy is already dead. It's time for them to say goodbye the right way, since they're the only two representatives of this new species. The punk starts crushing our boy's neck. Then a bunch of shots ring out into his back. He has to let go of our boy. And when he turns around, he sees the journalist is still alive. Looks like that barrel wasn't enough to finish him off. But the mutant's body is so tough, the bullets don't do anything. The punk thinks he's insanely powerful. He's not scared of anything. Until his body starts going through another kind of transformation. It looks like he's collapsing. Kim doesn't understand that sudden weakness either. Our protagonist needs to take advantage of this chance. He remembers the kindness of the people he's met so far. There's no option but to keep fighting. Full of determination, Yuan charges in to finish it, driving his hand straight through that horrible creature's chest. The punk definitely isn't fighting after that, because his heart is beating in the wrong place. The creature's body finally drops, lifeless. Kim is still really cautious. He wants to make sure it's actually dead, but they need to get out of that warehouse fast, because it's falling apart. So he goes over to help our protagonist get out. They have to, so the protagonist can find his sister. Outside, the others are waiting, really worried. The whole structure could collapse any second. Sujin is anxiously waiting for the other two to come out. She's so desperate she decides to go in too. Then she finally sees the reporter coming out, and he's bringing our boy with him. Both of them are totally exhausted and need medical attention. The doctor realizes he's got a long job ahead of him. Now they need to keep moving. The doctor tells them to hurry. Sujin is driving one of the vehicles, really worried. Our protagonist is next to her, still awake, but completely drained. He asks why they didn't just run earlier. She says she couldn't do that, she couldn't abandon her savior. Now our protagonist is only thinking about finding his sister, nothing else. The fire spread a lot, throwing up a dark cloud. Not long after all that, the rain finally came. The army vehicles finally made it to that location. They're investigating what happened, At first, everything looks normal. They didn't find any infected or any survivors. The rain is already putting the fire out, and it didn't spread into the forest. But inside that warehouse, there's something the leader needs to see in person. They found the body of that thug, one of the deserters they'd been hunting. They also ended up finding the bodies of the other 3. One of them looked like he'd been infected. But there are 4 deserters they're looking for. 2 of them were killed by gunshots, but the guns weren't found. If the last deserter is the one who did it, then he must be really dangerous. They're going to leave the bodies there and head back to base now, because they need to avoid contact with infected bodies at all costs. A mutant could show up if it hasn't already. The army vehicle returned to the camp. Those soldiers need to talk to the commander immediately. Their leader heads to the main cabin, ready to report everything he witnessed. The elderly colonel is ready to give them his full attention. That squad managed to find what they were looking for. The old man already knows about the bodies too. There are signs of an escape, done with 2 vehicles. They think the surviving deserter took out the other 3. Considering the nearby roads, they should still be in the city, within reach of the military. There's one more detail the soldier still hasn't shared. This isn't in the official reports. One of the bodies was infected, but it looked really different from a normal infected. Everything from the eye color to the super visible veins. This might be connected to the mutant the crazy scientist mentioned. That info makes the elderly colonel a bit worried, and he decides to keep it confidential. He doesn't have troops controlling the city situation. They need to protect the perimeter at all costs and find the last deserter. Our protagonist finally opened his eyes again. He woke up on a bed. He's so disoriented he doesn't even know where he is. Sujin went to talk to our boy, clearly relieved. Yiwan asked her to tell him what happened. She told him to rest a little more. The doctor said he wouldn't wake up for the next few days. But our protagonist realizes his body is completely healed, and they're in the city where his sister is. After everything that happened at that warehouse, they went to the city. With so many injured, they needed somewhere safe. Since there weren't any infected on that street, they found that clinic. Yiwan asked where his phone was, because he's sure his sister had called. Sujin said they managed to grab the phone safely. The reporter tried to contact our boy's sister, but couldn't reach her. Our protagonist tried calling one more time, but still couldn't. Kim thinks it's not that his sister's battery is dead. They're probably in a situation where they can't answer. Yiwan asked the doctor how his wife is, and the recruit too. The woman is recovering really well, and so is the recruit. That makes our boy feel relieved. But the doctor says the real lucky one is our boy. It's a miracle he's still alive after all that. His body recovered so well it doesn't even look like he went through any trauma. That kind of recovery should be impossible. He definitely has other advantages, besides not being attacked by zombies. Kim remembered when our boy got hit by a gunshot and nothing happened. The protagonist asked about the vaccine, the one that could end all of this. The doctor isn't totally sure, but he admits there's a chance. He needs a place where he can actually do that research. Yuan said he's willing to cooperate as much as possible. His companions are a little uneasy about it. Our boy said he needs to save his family first. Kim managed to get in touch with people from his job, and he's getting updated now on everything that happened. The guy on the other end figures the journey couldn't have been easy. The situation in the city is like anywhere else. The streets are empty. Military units have been seen around, but no survivors. The guy on the other end has information to share. He heard about what happened in Yangyang, and he's going to sum it up. Military forces are still very active, slaughtering survivors and infected without any distinction. Kim is horrified by that. The guy asked if Kim is with Sujin right now, but found out he's alone. This has to be kept secret from her, because the military force occupying that region is the 4th Armored Division. Their commander is the girl's father. He's definitely involved in that massacre if it really happened. A truth that could be shocking for Sujin. There are barely any infected in this city now, but it's still really dangerous. Not even the main guy would be safe in a situation like this. So this other man has some advice. They should avoid the soldiers at all costs when they go to rescue the main guy's family, and they should try to contact Sujin's father. If the soldiers really are massacring survivors, they need to be extremely careful. But in that area, there's a place surrounded by rivers, and the military set up their headquarters there. They need to take Sujin there, avoiding every soldier they can. Kim realizes that's way too risky, but they can't take the chance of getting wiped out. So the warning gets repeated. Avoid the soldiers. And Sujin's identity could put her in even more danger. The colonel asks if there are still any survivors left. He starts wondering what his battalion is even doing during the search. One of the soldiers asks if it's really okay to kill people who aren't infected. The colonel says people can carry the virus, and the higher-ups ordered them to eliminate everyone, and the soldiers have to obey. The colonel's order is to take out the deserters immediately. Because of the fire, they lost a lot of the supplies they'd built up, and at the same time, their group has gotten bigger. Kim checks some nearby stores, but they've already been looted. Getting supplies won't be easy. The main guy realizes he doesn't have much time. He needs to hurry and rescue his sister. Kim tells him not to go alone. Zombies aren't the problem anymore. The soldiers are hunting survivors, and they're way more dangerous than the zombies. But Yiwan has waited long enough. He's not just going to sit there. He tells everyone he'll come back safely. The doctor has something to ask him. Even though the kid saved him, he's got one more favor to request. He says Yuan is the only hope in this ruined world, and running straight into danger is kind of irresponsible. Kim thinks that's total nonsense, because the main guy has already saved a bunch of people, and that kind of everyone's responsibility shouldn't be dumped on him. He's not public property, he's a victim like the rest of them. Yuan says it's fine, he knows what he's doing. He just can't wrap his head around having that much power, and he wants to help. The person who taught him to be responsible was his sister, and she needs help now. After he rescues her, then he'll think about the bigger picture. The kid finds a motorcycle with the key still in the ignition. That'll make the trip a lot easier. Kim tells him to be careful. As he heads out, Yuan tells them not to worry about him, but that's easier said than done. Sujin tells him to be careful too, and says she hopes he comes back safe, they'll be waiting for him. With his motivation renewed, Yuan promises everything will be fine. The motorcycle tears through the streets of the abandoned city. In a building there, a woman and a little girl are lying on the floor. The little girl has just woken up from resting. She sees the woman next to her is still asleep, her mom. When her mom doesn't get up, the girl leaves the room. She goes to the living room, which is completely empty. At another door, it sounds like someone is knocking. On the other side is an infected man, the girl's father. The little girl starts looking around, trying to figure things out. Her mom finally wakes up and realizes the girl is gone. She gets really worried. While she's calling out her name, the little girl goes to see what's outside their home. The soldiers keep searching for survivors, but they can't find anyone anymore. They think the commander is doing this for fun, even though there are deserters in the area. One of them notices something. They were on that street the day before, but that car wasn't parked there then. The main guy is still searching for his sister. His phone has no signal now. That makes things harder. He spots something floating in the river below. Bodies dumped there. That makes him realize he needs to hurry. The doctor is taking care of the recruit, who still has a lot of recovering to do. The recruit's wife is getting healthier too. Still, she's sleeping deeply because she needs to regain her strength. The recruit soon finds out the main guy went off alone. Kim tried to stop him, but there's no stopping someone who just wants to see their own family. That's why he let him go. The recruit asks if he can be turned into the military division in that area. The reporter is shocked. Even if the recruit doesn't want to do it, he can't act like nothing happened. He did a lot of unforgivable things, and he doesn't want to run from responsibility. Kim realizes this recruit is just as crazy as the main guy, but getting close to the military right now would be really dangerous. That's when a man told everyone not to move. Kim went over to Sujin to find out what had happened. The soldiers found them, and are ordering everyone to keep their hands up. Kim didn't expect they'd be discovered so easily. Sujin tries to tell them not to shoot. She says there aren't any infected there, just survivors. The journalist tells Sujin that Tina is really dangerous. The girl doesn't understand anything, no one's about to fire a weapon, but one of the soldiers tells his men to wait. He wants to know if there are any infected among those people. Still pretty nervous, the journalist confirms there aren't. Then the soldier asks how many patients are there. There are 2 people who need to recover. The soldier says that area is under their control, and they have to go to their temporary camp. Sujin asks to check something before doing that. She asks if this is the 4th Armored Division, Colonel Oldman's unit. The soldier didn't expect her to know him. Sujin has a favor to ask, that he send a message to the old colonel, saying his daughter is alive, and she's heading to the camp right now. One of the soldiers asks his leader what they should do. His superior says he shouldn't question the orders they were given. Their job is just to follow them and carry them out. Everything still alive in that city has to be eliminated. He points his gun at the little kid. Our guy finally makes it into the house where his sister is supposed to be. But when he searches the rooms, there's no one there. Then he starts hearing knocking on one of the doors. When he looks back, he realizes where the sound is coming from. It starts to seriously freak him out. He opens the door really carefully, and finds a man inside. It's his sister's husband, and he's become one of the infected too. The protagonist shuts the door again, crushed because he got there too late. He says he'll cure him soon, but he has to wait. Yuan is determined to keep looking for his sister. Back at headquarters, the old colonel asks what the crazy scientist needs. If it's within his power, he'll do it. The crazy scientist finds all that cooperation weird, since he's in handcuffs. That's when the colonel says they built a cell for him. Because he still doesn't understand the situation he's in, Shin is an important witness to what happened. Actually, he's one of the main suspects. The colonel's conversation gets interrupted by one of his men. Since it was so abrupt, he doesn't like it. But he's told one of the battalions found a group of survivors, and he needs to confirm the identity of one of them. Sujin can't even believe she's about to see her dad. The old colonel is really emotional about it too. They hug, super moved. Kim is really happy that reunion happened. Still confused, the colonel asks why she isn't in the capital. She thought her father would be in that city, so she came looking for him. She met some friends along the way who helped her get there. The old colonel wants to know how he can thank them. Kim seems to already know the man. That surprises the colonel a lot. Sujin is surprised too, because she didn't know those two knew each other. Even though they have a lot to talk about, the journalist says there are more urgent things. The person who helped them get there is looking for his family right now, and the order to kill all civilians needs to be called off. The leader of that small squad is about to shoot the child. He doesn't seem to feel that bad about it. He's still deciding if he should do it. That's when a woman shows up, desperate, begging them not to hurt her. Our protagonist's sister finally appears to protect the child. Her presence makes the soldiers even more confused. And again, she begs them not to shoot, saying they haven't been infected. The little girl doesn't understand why her mom is crying so much. The squad leader is totally conflicted now, because he's willing to carry out his orders. Women or children, it doesn't matter. He just didn't expect our protagonist to show up right at that moment. Yuan slams that soldier in the back, brutally, sending him flying into the nearest wall. The other soldier who sees it freezes completely, feeling the threatening vibe coming off the protagonist. The woman and the little girl are still terrified. Our protagonist finally reunites with his sister after 50 chapters of searching. She's clearly overwhelmed with emotion. She's about to collapse, but he catches her, and he gets really emotional too, because of this unbelievable reunion.